A fair-haired girl sits on her knees in front of a man begging him to marry her. The heroine asks to be allowed to live here for 3 years and promises to be quieter than a mouse and then disappear unnoticed. The blonde man asks the girl why he should accept her proposal. The blonde starts to worry that she has nowhere to go if she gets kicked out of here. Then the main character tells the man that she knows his secret. After the girl tells something, the blonde guy grins. The man gets down on one knee and agrees to marry the blonde. Sometime later, the main character gets married to Duke Aslan Tordel. On this day, all the nobility discusses the Duke's terrible taste in women. The ladies do not understand how a girl from a simple family, who, moreover, is not a beauty, could attract such a man. The fair-haired girl knew from the very beginning what people would think when they found out that the Duke had decided to marry her. At the age of 10, the main character remembered her past life, in which she read the novel she is now inside. At first, the girl thought that these memories had nothing to do with her. However, everything in the heroine's life turned out as it was written in that book. Since childhood, the blonde felt that her fate was already predetermined, and she could do nothing about it. Now the girl is the Duchess of Tordel, as described in the novel. The main character pensively reflects on the fact that neither the sea current nor the wind can be changed. The Duchess's thoughts are interrupted by Aslan, who throws his jacket over his wife's shoulders. The blonde feels her pulse quicken because of this gesture of attention. The girl's heart also could not resist fate, and she ended up falling in love with this man. Looking at their family portrait, the heroine thinks that she is happy to be the Duke's wife by contract. The main thing is to be next to him. The girl looks dreamily at the painting, wishing that this happiness would never end. 3 years later, that very day came. The red-haired girl greets the blonde, introducing herself as Rosalina Feridot. Hearing the guest's name, the Duchess realizes with horror that she is the one who stole Aslan's heart in the novel. Rosalina happily says that she is indebted to the House of Tordel and is very glad to meet the Duchess. The main character doesn't have time to respond to this, as all her strength suddenly leaves her. The alarmed man manages to catch the unconscious girl. According to the novel, the main character, Aslan Tordel, fell in love with Rosalina Feridot at first sight. The Duke decided to live with the red-haired woman for the rest of his life, and so he broke off his marriage with his wife after 3 years. The man married Rosalina, making her his legal wife. After this, the novel never told the further fate of Aslan's ex-wife. The girl remained only Duchess Tordel, whose name was practically never mentioned in the novel. When the main character finally opens her eyes, she sees her husband's worried face in front of her. After his wife woke up, the fair-haired man immediately got up from his place to call the doctor. However, the main character stops him, trying to convince the man that she is completely fine. Aslan insistently asks his wife to see a doctor, since she fainted for no reason. The blonde says she was simply surprised that the Duke suddenly brought home a strange girl. The Duchess apologizes for ruining the whole atmosphere, because the red-haired one is Aslan's guest. To this, the fair-haired man says that it is his fault that he brought the guest without telling his wife. The man tells the main character that the red-haired woman is his distant relative, and he accidentally met her and learned about her difficult situation. According to the plot, Rosalina suddenly became an orphan and was sold to a rich old man to cover her debts, and Aslan accidentally met her and promised to take care of her. The Duke promises his wife that the red-haired woman will not stay with them for long and will start a new life by next spring, having met a good man. The man asks his wife to allow Rosalind to stay on their estate for a year. The main character realizes that nothing will change, even if she kicks the girl out now. The Duchess puts on a false smile, agreeing to her husband's request. Aslan smiles happily, thanking his husband for his understanding. Rosalind, along with the other ladies, discusses the gifts and letters the Duke gave her. The red-haired one assures the girls that this is just concern on Aslan's part, since she only recently arrived here and doesn't know anything yet. The ladies call Rosalind noble, saying that they would not be surprised if she were the mistress of this mansion. At this, the cheeks of the Duke's distant relative blush, and she says that this mansion already has its own mistress. At this moment, Duchess Tortle enters the room smiling awkwardly. The ladies' glances, filled with hostility, are directed at the main character. The fair-haired girl looks away, because no matter how hard she tried, the noble ladies still did not accept her. The Duchess does not understand how Rosalina was able to achieve everyone's favor, which she failed to do in these 3 years. The red-haired woman joyfully greets the Duke's wife. The girl says that she wanted to visit the main character, but she couldn't, because she was told that she was still sick. The blonde thanks him for his concern, assuring him that she is completely fine. Rosalind tells the Duchess that she would like to see her sooner to ask her something. The red-haired girl takes the girl by the arm and leads her away from the room where the other ladies are. A distant relative of the Duke admits that she has heard strange rumors from other noble ladies. Rosalina says that many people believe that Aslan kidnapped the Duchess and forced her to marry him. This news shocks the main character. The red-haired girl says that she didn't believe it at all, because she saw that the Duke was not such a reckless person. However, the girl still decides to clarify whether this rumor is nonsense. The fair-haired girl remembers how her father called Aslan a criminal who kidnapped his daughter and forced her to marry him. The noble ladies also could not understand why the Duke was so stubborn, even if his bride's family was against this marriage. The men could not understand how fascinated the blonde was by the girl, since they had never heard the name Helena Laristine. The main character expressed doubts about how society speaks about them. However, Helena's husband replied that everything was happening the way she wanted, because the fair-haired girl married him so that her parents would not touch her. The Duchess confidently tells Rosalind that Aslan is a very caring person. The heroine asks not to believe this rumor, after which she decides to leave first. The red-haired girl can only look in surprise at the girl leaving. Aslan Tordel is the only heir of a family with a centuries-old history, who has everything: power, wealth, and a beautiful appearance. Helena can't stop beating herself up over how perfect the Duke was until she came along. However, the blonde understands that she had no other choice, and all this was for the sake of escaping from the Laristine family. As a child, the main character almost died because of a carriage rushing towards her. But everything ended well, and the transport managed to stop at the very last moment. Then a woman approached the girl, and with tears in her eyes, joyfully called her Helena. The stranger hugs the heroine tightly, who tries to convince her that this name does not belong to her. A man runs up to the woman, telling her to finally come to her senses, because Helena is dead. However, the stranger notices the enormous resemblance between the dead girl and the one who is now standing in front of him. The man grabs the child by the chin and says that of all the children they have seen, she looks most like Helena. The stranger smirks and asks the child how old she is. That same night, the main character was kidnapped from her home. The parents of the girl, whose real name is Rayla, tried to catch up with the kidnappers. However, the criminals escaped into the forest on horses. From that day on, the fair-haired girl became Helena Laristine, for the sake of the lady who went mad because of her dead daughter. The head of the Laristine family told the heroine that if she played the role of Helena well, she would be able to live her life as a noblewoman. However, the man warned that if the girl failed like the two who came before her, she would also die. Looking at the distraught woman, the maids laughed, because the Count was doing everything to avoid losing his wife's inheritance. Rayla Violet was constantly waiting for the moment when Mrs. Larriston would die, and she would finally be able to return to her former life. And then came the day that the main character had been waiting for. But the Count did not let her go. The servant told the man that the Countess had bequeathed all her property to her daughter, and until she became an adult, no one had the right to touch the inheritance. The head of the family ordered Helena to be killed, because if she died before marriage, everything would go to him. However, there was another condition in the will. which stipulated that the entire inheritance should be donated to God if her daughter died before coming of age. Hearing this, the enraged count decided to lock Helena in the attic until she came of age. At this point, the heroine began to be treated worse than a servant. Although it was very difficult for the girl, she felt relief, since she no longer had to pretend to be someone else. This peace did not last long, since after the death of the countess, the count's mistress became his second wife, and Glock, the illegitimate son of the count, made Rayla's life hell. Every time the guy approached the blonde, her body began to tremble. The count's second wife was worried that her son's communication with Helena would lead him down the wrong path. The woman's husband asked her to be patient with him a little longer, saying that he would soon sort everything out. To show that Helena was still alive, she was sometimes forced to take part in social events. On one of them, the blonde noticed that someone had dropped their handkerchief. The main character picked up the scarf and called out to its owner to return the item. However, when the man turned towards the girl, she was speechless because of his beauty. The owner of the scarf introduced himself as Aslan Tordel and thanked the lady for her help, saying that this thing was very dear to him. Hearing this name, the heroine felt that she had heard it somewhere before. Aslan asked the stranger to tell him her name, and Helena Lariston stammered it out. The blonde man decided to thank the girl for her help by fulfilling one of her wishes. However, the main character immediately refused the offer, believing that she had done nothing wrong. The man held out one of his cufflinks, saying that if she had a request in the future, she should come to the Tordel mansion and show it to him. At parting, Aslan expressed the hope of seeing Helena Lariston again. Already lying on the attic floor, the main character tries to remember where she could have heard the name of that man. Suddenly, it dawns on the girl that Duke Tordel is the main character of one of the novels she has read. After this, the fair-haired girl realizes that in that story, the Duchess's name was the same as hers. However, Helena immediately dismisses these thoughts, since she definitely cannot be Aslan's future wife, because they will not meet again. The heroine decides to keep the cufflink as a keepsake and already wants to hide it, but is distracted by the person who entered. Glock enters his sister's room and reminds her that the count's new wife wants to marry her off to a dying old man. The guy offers Helena to live with him rather than be sold. The brother wants to hug the blonde, but she breaks free from his grip. Glock smirks and asks the girl not to act so coldly towards him. The next moment, the heroine shudders as she hears her brother's words that he knows where her parents are now. Helena asks her brother how he knows her parents, to which he replies that they came here to find their daughter. The blonde excitedly asks what happened to her family. Glock says their father ordered the girl's parents to be killed before anything bad happened, after which the guy says that those people still managed to escape, like rats. Helena asks, in a trembling voice, where her family is now. Glock approaches his sister's ear and tells her to please him. Rosiana wants to know about it so much. The brother begins to untie the main character's dress, saying that if he is in a good mood, he can secretly find her parents without her father knowing. The blonde closes her eyes, thinking about how she needs to be patient in order to see her family again. At this moment, Rayla's thoughts were filled with her mother's words about how she should never hold back if someone offends her. The heroine takes the closest heavy thing to her and hits her brother on the head with it. The blonde's body begins to shake violently as she realizes what she just did. The shocked girl tries to understand what to do and how to act now. Suddenly, Helena's gaze stops on the handkerchief in which the Duke's cufflink is wrapped. The main character realizes that her family is looking for her, so she must escape from here and survive. The girl remembers Aslan's words that if she has a request for him, she can come to Tordel's mansion and show him this thing. Wet and frozen due to the bad weather, Helena stands before the Duke and asks in a trembling voice if he remembers her. The fair-haired girl states her name and reminds Aslan that at the recent banquet, he told her to find him if she had a request. The blonde man looks at the girl carefully and then finally starts a conversation. saying that first she needs to change her clothes. A man asks his guest why she is dressed so lightly on such a cold evening. Helena clutches her skirt awkwardly, apologizing for dirtying Duke Tordel's mansion. Aslan asks the fair-haired girl to first change into dry clothes, after which he will listen to her. The main characters help to take a bath. The girl thinks with embarrassment that the smell of lilac that surrounds her is her favorite scent. After the bath, Helena is taken to a room to change into dry clothes. The fair-haired girl doesn't understand where the Duke could have gotten clothes in her size, since he is alone and has no sisters. Already standing in front of Aslan, clean and in new clothes, the main character once again thanks him for his kindness. A man asks his guest what request she came to him with late at night. Helena falls to her knees and in a pleading tone asks the Duke to marry her. The heroine reflects on the fact that if she dies unmarried, all her property will go to her father. However, if the girl is killed while she is married, the inheritance will go to her husband. The fair-haired girl asks to live in this mansion for 3 years, after which she will quietly disappear. Aslan asks the main character why he should accept her offer. Helena informs the Duke that she has an inheritance from Countess Laristine, which she will receive when she comes of age, after which she will give it to her husband. The fair-haired man says that he is not one of those who need property, since the Duchy of Tordel is not in poverty. The girl realizes that she has no choice but to use her knowledge. Helena Laristin from the novel threatened Aslan and forced him to marry her for 3 years because she knew his secret. The fair-haired woman says something that the Duke never expected to hear. When the guest finishes speaking, the blonde man grins. The man gets down on one knee and agrees to marry Helena Laristine. The main character looks at the sky, remembering how she became the Duchess of Tordel 3 years ago. Suddenly, not far from her, the girl hears someone talking about their arranged marriage. Aslan explains to the red-haired woman that, at Helena's request, they agreed to live as a married couple for 3 years. Rosalind says with disappointment that the Duke did not marry the Duchess because he loved her. The blonde man says gloomily that there was not a word about love in their contract, and they agreed not to bother each other during these 3 years. Helena is horrified by the man's words, because she now understands that an arranged marriage cannot be desired. The girl gets up from her seat and decides to leave the main characters of the novel as soon as possible. In written history, there was never any room for love in the relationship between the Duke and Duchess. However, there was something that was different from the original plot of the novel. In the book, the blonde man never asked his wife to call him by his first name. The main character often noticed that Aslan was strangely kind to her. One day, a man brought his wife to a garden where a huge number of lilacs were planted. The blonde man prepared these flowers, especially as a wedding gift, so that the girl would have a place to relax. Because of Aslan's attention to Helena, she had hope, but her reputation was still as terrible as in the novel. The noble ladies often discussed the girl, calling her uneducated and ignorant of etiquette. At times, when the main character felt terrible because of such words from others, her husband carefully told her not to overwork herself and to rest more. As a result, a hope was born in the soul of the fair-haired girl that the Duke loved her. However, Helena now realizes that this hope was wrong. The situation that the main character found herself in and the phrases that she heard from Aslan were exactly the same as in the novel. The Duchess finds it hard to breathe, as she feels trapped in a fate that has already been determined. Before entering the mansion, the blonde loses consciousness. Outside the door to the Duchess's bedroom, the maids discuss their mistress's latest fainting spell. Helena opens her eyes and thinks about how when she lived with the Laristine family, her body became very weak due to constant stress and abuse. Suddenly, the blonde feels a coolness. Someone put a wet towel on her forehead. In her delirium, the heroine imagines that she sees Aslan caring for her. However, the girl immediately dispels these thoughts, realizing that this cannot be her husband. Helena closes her eyes against the loud ringing in her ears. preventing her from hearing anything. Aslan looks at his wife with excitement in his eyes, asking her to open her eyes quickly. Jenna tells the Duke that she will look after the lady so he can rest. The fair-haired man sharply answers the maid that he will stay with his wife and says not to let anyone in so as not to disturb Helena's rest. Before leaving, Jenna reports that Lady Rosalina has come to visit Lady Tordell, to which Aslan once again repeats his order. The Duke squeezes the blonde's hand, saying that he doesn't know what to do every time she faints. The blonde man kisses the girl's hand, asking her not to be sick for long. Rosalina asks the maid if she was correct in telling her who had come. Jenna looks away, awkwardly saying that the gentleman said not to let anyone in. Hearing this, the red-haired girl bites her lip in displeasure. The girl remembers how the fair-haired man, upon hearing that Mrs. Tordell had fainted, immediately jumped up from his seat. Rosalina doesn't understand why Aslan is so worried about Helena if they didn't marry for love. Looking at the portrait of the Tordell family, the red-haired one smiles, as the 3 years will soon be up, and the Duke's marriage will come to an end. Lady Faridot is glad that Aslan will no longer have to be associated with someone who cannot properly play the role of a duchess. Rosalina smiles again, remembering what others have said about her being much better suited for the role. Many ladies were irritated by Helena because of her, Duke Tordell was surrounded by bad rumors. The girls thought that the fair-haired girl always looked around like a commoner, and unlike her, Rosalina was very graceful and self-confident. Aslan's distant relative was proud that in high society she was treated only with admiration. The red-haired woman notes that since Duke Tordell still hasn't had a child, it's obvious that he and his wife have a contract marriage without love. Rosalina is sure that the blonde man is too kind, so he simply could not turn away from the poor girl. The red-haired one intends to continue to act in order to achieve the position of Duchess of Tordell. Jenna notices that her mistress has finally come to her senses. The maid tells the fair-haired girl that the Duke was very worried about her because she had been ill for several days. The girl tells Helena that Aslan was with her the whole time, but left for a short time, as Lady Rosalina had to give him something important. Hearing the name of the red-haired girl, the main character's eyes become sad. The blonde clutches the blanket, realizing it's time to leave. Helena asks Jenna what date it is today. Hearing the maid's answer, the Duchess's mood improves, because tomorrow is her birthday. However, this holiday does not belong to Helena Lariston, but to Rayla Violet. The girl warmly recalls Aslan's words that he would always congratulate her on her real birthday. The blonde asks herself if she can be a little selfish and spend her last day with her husband. Helena asks Jenna to help her wash and change clothes so she can meet her husband to ask for something. The main character knocks on her husband's office door, but receives no answer. One of the servants tells the girl that Duke Tordell has gone somewhere today. Suddenly, Helena notices a carriage that has just arrived through the window. The fair-haired woman is initially happy about her husband's arrival, but the next moment the smile disappears from her face. Aslan does not come out alone. A sweetly smiling Rosalina comes out of the carriage after him. The heroes are chatting enthusiastically about something, being in very close contact. Helena looks worriedly at how harmoniously Rosalina looks next to Aslan. The Duke notices something in the window and abruptly turns his gaze to it. Noticing this, the blonde quickly turns away from the window, covering her mouth with her hand. Rosalina asks the blonde man what happened, to which he replies that he just imagined something. Duke Tordell smiles and asks his distant relative to tell him the rest of her story. Rosalina takes Aslan's arm and suggests that they have dinner together. The Duchess watched this whole scene, trembling and covering her mouth. A little later, the fair-haired girl is informed that Duke Tordell will be having dinner with Lady Rosalina today. Helena smiles awkwardly at the servants who broke the news and asks them to tell Aslan not to worry about her coming to see him today. The Duchess remembers the picture she saw today and thinks that the main characters of the novel really were made for each other. A little later, Helena accidentally runs into the red-haired girl in the corridor. Rosalina grabs the blonde's hand and asks how she is feeling. Aslan's distant relative smiles widely as she tells the Duchess that it would have been great if she had attended the ball last night. Seeing his surprised look, Rosalina explains that the Duke was supposed to go to this event alone since his wife was ill, but she decided to keep him company. The redhead begins to smile even wider, informing Helena that Aslan has happily agreed to go with her. The girl says that the blonde man thanked her for going with him and gave her a new dress today. Rosalina tells the blonde that they went together and chose a new outfit for her. With every second, the Duchess's face became gloomier and gloomier because today was her holiday. The heroine recalls that in the novel, the main characters also quickly became close, since the red-haired woman was able to fill the place that the fake wife could not. Helena grimly realizes that she is truly only a supporting character. The blonde thanks Rosalina for her help, saying that she is truly happy for her. The Duchess says that her body is still not strong enough, so she is going to rest alone today. The main character thinks that Aslan only felt sorry for her, and that's why he promised to celebrate her real birthday together. Even though the fair-haired man promised never to forget about her holiday, Helena understands that she has no right to blame him for this. Looking out the window, the heroine reflects on the fact that it is normal for a secondary character to be forgotten as soon as the main one appears. The girl notices Aslan and Rosalina walking down the street. Suddenly, the Duke stops and approaches the red-haired girl, as if for a kiss. What she saw caused a barely noticeable tear to roll down Helena's cheek. The main character sadly realizes that now is truly the time for her to leave. Aslan leans towards the red-haired girl, saying that he has already entertained her enough. The Duke, in an irritated voice, tells the girl to quickly convey the promised information to him. Helena looks carefully at the clear sky, and the warm rays of the sun gently fall on her face. The blonde smiles and tells herself with sadness in her voice that today is a good day to leave. Today is not only Rayla Violet's birthday, but also the last day of her contract with Aslan. The heroine realizes that her husband is too polite to ask her to leave, so she decides to say goodbye to him herself. Before entering the Duke's office, Helena exhales nervously, trying to stop feeling nervous. After standing in front of the door for a while, the blonde finally decides to knock. Aslan is distracted from his work and raises his surprised gaze to the one who entered. The blonde man approaches his wife and asks about her health. Helena apologizes for disturbing him, but asks Aslan to give her some time, as she has something to talk about. The heroine sits down on the sofa and remembers that it was in this very place 3 years ago that she signed a marriage contract with Duke Tordel. The blonde closes her eyes and calmly asks her husband if he remembers the day they made the deal. The Duke replies, in surprise, that of course he remembers it. Helena says with a smile on her face that today is the day she comes of age, which means their contract has come to an end. A servant enters the room, announcing that they have prepared everything as the Duke requested. Aslan tells the newcomer that he is talking to his wife, but the Duchess immediately interrupts him. Helena asks her husband not to put off his business, as she has come to say goodbye. The blonde bows to the Duke, thanking him for everything he has done for her. The girl tells Aslan that she will leave Tordel's mansion today. Hearing this, the blonde man suddenly rises from his seat. A man approaches his wife and asks her what he did wrong and whether he offended her with any of his actions. The fair-haired girl replies that this is not so, because all this time the Duke was very kind to her. Helena smiles tenderly and says, addressing her husband by name, that she sincerely wishes him happiness. The Duchess heads for the door, but the blonde man tries to stop her. The heroes are interrupted by Rosalina, who enters and shouts at Aslan that they may be late if they do not leave right now. Duke Tordel leans towards his wife and says that they will continue their conversation a little later. Finally, the blonde guy tells the main character that if she is not happy with something, he will definitely fix it, so he asks her to wait just a little longer. Then Aslan leaves, while heatedly discussing something with the red-haired girl. When the doors close, the heroine lowers her gaze to the floor and says goodbye to her love forever. Preparing for departure did not take much time, since Helena had almost no luggage. The fair-haired girl was worried that Aslan might misunderstand everything, so she left him a letter with a ring. One of the servants asks the girl if she is really leaving, since the Duke should return soon, to which she thanks Dalton for his concern. Jenna asks the lady where she is going, but Helena replies that the Duke will not want to know. The main character gets on a train and leaves the place where she has spent the last 3 years. Aslan enters the room, the location of which they received from Rosalina Faridot. The blonde looks around and, seeing complete chaos, turns to the girl, asking what happened here. The red-haired girl answers with a trembling voice, "These scattered things definitely belong to that person." Aslan angrily clutches the stranger's clothes, thinking that he again failed to catch that man. The first thing Duke Tordel did after marrying Helena was send people to destroy the Laristine family. It was easy for the fair-haired man to ruin the Count, who, with the help of his daughter, was trying to get his hands on the Tordel family's railway business. After Count Laristan died of a drinking binge, his second wife Marisa and son Glock fled. After 3 years of persecution, their tracks were spotted on the territory of Baron Faridot. The knight who accompanied the Duke to the Baron's lands said that Marisa had seduced the Baron and spent all his fortune, and having lost everything, the man killed her and committed suicide, and Glock escaped. The blue-haired man also informed the gentleman that the location of Marisa's son was still unknown, and that the Baron's only daughter was rumored to be Glock's lover. Aslan decided to get closer to Rosalina so that rumors would spread that he had paid off all her debts and brought her to his place. Since then, Helena's half-brother would again try to get closer to the red-haired girl. In the end, everything turned out as the Duke wanted, and they managed to track the location of Glock, who came to the Baron's daughter, Faridot. The blonde man no longer intends to let go of Marisa's son, the one who has been torturing Helena for so long. Aslan looks menacingly at his men, ordering them to find Glock Laristine. The main character arrives at Era's station, in the small and modest port village of Ellawood. Thanks to her husband, the girl exchanged letters with her family all these 3 years. The family of the fair-haired girl went to live in a remote village so that Aslan would not get into trouble because she was not of noble origin. A woman and a young man notice that someone is hurrying towards their house. The next moment, a bucket of red apples falls to the ground. The woman looks at the girl standing in front of her in amazement, and then shouts out her daughter's name in disbelief. The blonde calls the woman Mom, with tears in her eyes. Hearing these words, Ryla is immediately embraced in a tender embrace. The girl's father immediately jumps up when he hears his daughter's name. Finally, all members of Violet's family are reunited. Tears begin to flow non-stop down the main character's face. The girl apologizes to her family for not visiting them for so long, to which her parents say that the most important thing is that she returned to them alive. Ryla's brother invites his sister to their home. Now, looking at her family, the blonde realizes that she is truly at home. Jenna and Dalton look in fear at the Duke as he reads the letter Helena left before she left. In the letter, the main character thanks Aslan for his care and wishes her happiness in marriage with Lady Rosalina, hoping that the red-haired one did not understand everything wrong, because their marriage was only by contract. The girl also tells the blonde man that she left a signed divorce document and a marriage contract signed 3 years ago in the envelope. The Duke turns his menacing gaze to the servants and asks them why they did not stop his wife. Hearing that Dalton tried to dissuade the lady, but she still left, Aslan realizes that he should not have left her. The man doesn't understand how Helena could think that he wants to be with Rosalina, but then he realizes that she could have heard their conversation about an arranged marriage. The fair-haired man carefully hid how much he cared about his wife, so that Glock could finally meet with Baron Faradot's daughter. If the main character's half-brother found out Helena's true situation, he might start to intimidate her. So, in order to specifically fool Glock, Aslan decided to tell Rosalind everything. The Duke tears the letter into many pieces and then suggests that the girl might have gone to Ellawood. The man orders that people not involved in capturing Glock be sent to this village to protect Helena. Aslan also tells him to prepare a train for him to go to his wife. The blonde man approaches the window, which reveals a well-kept garden with a beautiful flower arch. The Duke takes a small velvet box out of his jacket pocket. Inside is a diamond ring that Aslan wanted to give to his wife when he finally sorted out her past. The man wanted to give her a ring, surrounded by her favorite flowers, which would mean that their arranged marriage was coming to an end, and a real one was beginning. From the very beginning, Aslan had no intention of letting Helena go. 4 years ago, a man began to see dreams in which he looked older than he does now and was in love with a girl. The stranger, using the Duke's secret, forces him to marry, and he, feeling betrayed, was forced to live with her in marriage for 3 years. However, 3 years later, the girl leaves, and he suffers, unable to forget her, and dies alone. Even though it was just a dream, the blonde man was frightened by its realism. Aslan could not believe that this dream could be prophetic. In his dream, the man heard the name of that girl, so he immediately found Helena Lariston. At one of the events, he found the one to whom this name belongs. The Duke learned that the girl was in poor health, so she did not often appear in high society. Aslan looked closer and noticed that the lady looked the same as in his dream, causing the man to assume that there was some kind of connection between them. The blonde man decided to drop his scarf to see if she knew about it or not. When Helena called out to the man to give him the thing, all the feelings that Aslan had experienced in his dream came flooding back. Then the Duke realized that at the moment when he first saw her in his dream, his heart had been pounding just as wildly. When the fair-haired man learned that Helena Lariston really existed, he became obsessed with his dreams. The man began to collect everything that was somehow connected with the fair-haired girl. Outfits from dreams, her favorite flowers. Aslan began to wait impatiently for the real Helena, and finally the day came when she came. Looking at the trembling girl, the Duke noticed that she looked younger than he had seen in the world of Morpheus. However, seeing the fair-haired girl in clothes chosen especially for her, the man realized that she was much more beautiful than the Helena from his dreams. When Aslan asked what the fair-haired girl wanted to ask him, she did not threaten him, but simply asked him to marry her. Then the blonde man decided to ask why he should do this, to which the girl said that she knew his secret. After these words, Helena began to cough violently, which made the Duke very worried. The man immediately asked the blonde to get up from the cold floor, because she was caught in a cold downpour. The main character realizes that she cannot force such a kind man into marriage. The girl decides to beg Aslan for help, telling him that Count Laristin has kidnapped her. The man's face darkens, and he asks the girl in a disbelieving tone what she is talking about. Crying, the heroine confesses that she is not actually Helena Laristin, but Rayla Violet. The fair-haired girl tells the Duke that the Count promised to kill her if she did not pretend to be his daughter. Aslan was amazed and could not believe what Helena was saying, because he was hearing about it for the first time. The girl couldn't stop crying as she told the story of her escape. The main character sincerely apologized to the man for not finding another way but to marry him. Suddenly, Helena heard Aslan chuckle. At that moment, Duke Tordel finally realized that the girl from the dream could have proposed marriage to him for the same reason. The man did not hate Helena from the dream because she betrayed his love and twisted him around, using his weakness. Aslan's love overshadowed this hatred and sense of betrayal. However, the fair-haired man was never interested in knowing the real situation of the red-haired woman until the day she left him. This time the Duke does not intend to repeat the same mistake. Aslan gets down on one knee to help the girl up from the cold floor and agrees to marry her. To Helena's disbelieving look, the blond man says that this will be his gratitude for the dear scarf that she returned to him. The main character looks at the man with distrust, not understanding why he is ready to marry her for a simple scarf. Aslan leans towards the fair-haired girl and asks her what she would do if he did not agree to fulfill her request. The girl immediately replies that then she would sell the scarf that was lent to her and run away as far as possible. And even though it would not be easy, the heroine would like to find her family. The Duke notices that Helena is very sincere compared to the Helena in the dream. Aslan invites the fair-haired girl to stay with him, as it is safer, and offers to help her find her parents. The blonde smiles and says that he can't stay away after hearing the story. The heroine interprets these words as meaning that the man was only unable to throw her out the door out of pity. The Duke understood that from the very beginning, their relationship was different, because they loved each other completely, without any hatred or misunderstanding. Aslan decided for himself that this time he would never lose his beloved. Rosalina goes down to the first floor to see what all the fuss is about. The girl stops one of the maids and asks what is going on, to which she receives the answer that the master is going on a trip. When asked what journey they were talking about, the maid says that the mistress left alone, so the Duke is going to follow her. The red-haired girl asks the maid why Aslan is doing this. The girl smiles, saying that Madame Helena has not yet recovered, so the Duke is very worried. Rosalina doesn't understand what's going on, because she thought Aslan didn't care about this marriage. The Baron's daughter decides that she will do everything to ensure that the Duke and the fair-haired girl meet again. The red-haired girl asks the maid to pack her luggage too, as she will miss him if Aslan goes so far away. Rosalina asks the maid to take care of this, while she informs the owner of the mansion of her intentions herself. As the girl walks towards the Duke, she reflects on the fact that Aslan is simply confused by his wife's sudden departure. The red-haired woman is confident that the man will soon understand who really cares about him. Violet's family sits down to celebrate their daughter's return. Tears appear in the eyes of the main character when she feels the very taste of her mother's chicken soup, which she loved so much as a child. The girl's brother notes that, judging by everything, the duchy took very good care of her, since she became so beautiful. Rayla's father happily says that the Duke really helped them a lot, since they didn't need anything all this time. The man's son agrees with him, because it was extremely difficult for them to live on the run. The fair-haired woman says that Aslan is very merciful, and they all owe him. The brother nudges his sister, noting that her husband was very nice to her. For such a statement, Aiden's mother scolds him, to which he replies that the Duke wrote, "Dear mother-in-law, father-in-law," every time. That's why he says it that way. Aiden laughs at his parents because they treat the blonde boy as if he really is their son-in-law. The young man turns to his sister and whispers to her that he had already begun to think that she would not return to them. However, the woman hears what her son is saying, so she immediately shuts his mouth, saying that Ryla would definitely return to them. Aiden does not agree with his mother's words, since in her letters, the fair-haired woman wrote only about Aslan, as if she was truly in love with him. The parents apologize for the young man's behavior, saying that even if the girl has problems with the Duke, then everything is fine because she has them. Ryla says she has no problems with her ex-husband, and that their contract simply ended, so she came back to avoid bothering him. The heroine thinks that Aslan has most likely already forgotten about her and is having fun with Rosalina. These thoughts make the girl's heart hurt. The blonde thanks her parents for the food and gets up from her seat, getting ready to go unpack her luggage. Aiden asks the family if they think Rayla left home after a fight with her husband, but they advise him to pretend he didn't notice until the girl decides to tell them. Dalton informs the Duke that he has booked a train to Eris Station, which stops near the village of Ellawood. Rosalina Ferido attracts Aslan's attention by saying that she has heard about his journey. The redhead smiles sweetly telling the man that she is going to go with him so that he won't get bored. The blonde man tells the girl that she doesn't have a ticket, so she won't be able to go with him, and then turns away, starting to leave. Finally, Aslan asks Dalton to quickly escort Lady Faridot inside, as they will soon need to leave. Returning to her room, the red-haired girl asks the maid when the Duke is going to return. The maid tells the lady that she does not have this information, but since the man followed his wife, he will most likely return when they have resolved all her affairs. Rosalina asks the girl if all her clothes are in those red suitcases. Having received a positive answer, the red-haired girl says that she needs new dresses, which greatly surprises the maid. Since the money that Aslan gave her has not yet run out, the Baron's daughter decides to use it as she wants. Lady Faridot tells her maid that she does not want to meet a man tired from traveling in a nondescript outfit that she has already worn. A little later, the girl visits a boutique where she buys an elegant white and jade dress. The red-haired girl happily walks down the street, humming some melody, and already imagines what Aslan's reaction will be to the new outfit. The next moment, someone grabs the Baron's daughter and drags her into a dark alley. Someone tells Rosalind that she is very lucky. When the girl hears a familiar voice, her whole body begins to tremble. Glock Laurestin looks at the red-haired girl with a sly grin. The man approaches Rosalind and says that he knows who really revealed the Duke's location. Ash-haired reminds the Baron's daughter of their past and calls her a traitor. Redhead pushes Glock away from her, saying that they have no past. The girl screams at the man that when her father died and she was sold, he immediately ran away, leaving her alone. Ash-haired raises his hands up and says that he is very sorry for that, but there was nothing he could do about that situation. Suddenly, Glock's mood changes again, and he slams Rosalina into the wall, saying that it was she who turned him over to Duke Tordel. The man notes that Aslan treats the girl well, judging by how much money she is currently wearing. The redhead pushes Glock's hand away, screaming at him not to touch her. Ash-haired tells the Baron's daughter that she has become too conceited by becoming the Duke's mistress. The man approaches the girl again, after which he warns her that he can reveal her secret at any moment. 2 years ago, Rosalina was very tired of the monotony of rural life, until one day, a groom appeared in the red-haired girl's life, hired by her father. This man was able to win the girl's heart. Rosalind's father was busy gambling, so he completely forgot about his daughter, and then her relationship with the groom became serious. One day, the red-haired girl found out that she was carrying a child and immediately told her lover about it. The girl was very worried about this, as she was afraid that her father might kill her if he found out about everything. Then Glock told Rosalind that he would take full responsibility. However, when the Baron, having lost his property, stabbed Marissa to death, the ash-haired man, frightened, fled. Soon the girl's father committed suicide, and she lost her child. After this, Aslan appeared before the red-haired woman, who was sold for debts, ready to pay off all her debts, but only on one condition. The man asked to let him know if Maurice's son came to visit Rosalina. Then the Duke said that he was worried about the girl, because this man could harm her. Since Aslan's wife was often ill or too shy, her reputation in society was not very good. Because of this, the red-haired girl thought that she could easily replace Helena. Glock asks Rosalina if she really thinks the Duke will love her, even after learning about her past. Maurice's son smirks, saying that no one would be happy about a girl who is pregnant by another man. The red-haired girl gets furious at the ash-haired man's words and hits him hard on the cheek. Rosalina threatens to kill the man if he tells Aslan anything. After this, the Baron's daughter runs out of the alley. Having run to the mansion, the girl thinks about what she should do if Aslan finds out everything. However, Rosalina immediately realizes that the blonde man will kill Glock when he finds him. The red-haired girl puts her hands to her stomach, thinking that the Duke is trying to protect her, so he will accept her no matter what. Remembering how Aslan reacted to her idea of going on a trip together, the girl is worried. as she still does not understand his feelings. The fair-haired man arrives at the heiress station, after which he and his men go to his wife's house. The Duke decides to go to his wife alone, so that she would not be afraid that armed men came to her at such an early hour. Aslan comes closer to the house and stops in the shadow of a tree, wondering whether the blonde has woken up or not. Suddenly, the window opens, and Rayla appears from it, wishing good morning to her family. The man flinches when he hears his wife's voice. The main character smiles happily, enjoying the beautiful singing of birds and the fresh morning air. The girl shouts at her father, asking what he wanted to cook for breakfast today, to which he replies that today it will be his signature soup. Rayla laughs sweetly when she hears how enthusiastic and caring her father is. Aslan steps back, amazed that the blonde smiled so many times in such a short period of time. The man recalls that in the duchy, he constantly noticed that Rayla looked sad and unsure of herself. The heroine asks her brother how she can help them, to which he suggests going to collect herbs. Aiden goes outside, warning his sister that anyone late will be responsible for the laundry. Rayla runs out of the house, shouting at her brother that he is not playing fair because he went out first. Aslan watches gloomily as the brother and sister frolic happily and carefree. Looking at the fair-haired girl, the Duke thinks that she has never smiled so brightly in front of him. The blonde man clenches his fists tightly, realizing that his wife looks much happier than when she was next to him. Aslan wonders if he dares ask Helena to come back when she smiles so brightly. Sitting on her bed, Rosalind decides to ask the Duke about his feelings for her as soon as he returns from his journey. The red-haired woman reflects that if the man returns with the Duchess, then he still has feelings for her. However, if Aslan returns alone, the Baron's daughter is seriously determined to make him fall in love with her. Rosalina smirks, thinking that Glock couldn't resist her either. Aiden teaches his sister, showing her how to properly gather the herbs they need. Suddenly, they are interrupted by a sound coming from somewhere behind them. Rayla sees a silhouette in front of her, causing her to think that it might be her husband. However, instead of the blonde man, an unknown man appears in front of the girl. The heroine's brother wishes good morning to the guest, to which he tells the young man that he brought them the morning newspaper. While Aiden introduces his sister to their postman, Hans, the Duke, at the same time, hides behind a tree trunk. The postman greets the blonde, noting to himself that she is very beautiful. Having greeted her new acquaintance, Rayla looks down sadly and reproaches herself for thinking that it was Aslan who came to her. Aiden nudges the postman in the side, telling him not to look at a married girl. Hansa, with a little disappointment and surprise in her voice, says that the fair-haired girl, it turns out, is married. But she immediately begins to wave her hands negatively and claim that this is not so. Rayla tells the man that she was married but recently divorced. These words came as a bolt from the blue to the Duke. Hans apologizes to the girl for raising a topic that was unpleasant for her, to which Rayla replies that it's time for her to stop fooling herself and get her hopes up. The main character says that everything is fine with her now, and on the contrary, she feels better at heart. The postman exhales, saying that, in that case, he is happy for the blonde. Aslan finally sank down, and Rayla's words about how she felt better now kept spinning in his head. The girl's mother looks out of the house, asking her children what they are doing outside for so long in the cool weather. Aiden shows the woman the newspaper and asks her not to worry about them. The mother throws a snow-white blanket over Rayla's shoulders and says that she is simply afraid that her beloved daughter will catch a cold. The family finally goes indoors to enjoy the head of the family's signature meal. The Duke repeats the girl's words in his head once again, and now realizes that next to him, she only suffered. In Aslan's dream, Helena was not interested in anyone but him. The fair-haired girl never spoke about her family, hobbies, or her friends, and simply always followed the Duke, trying to win his love. The man thought that if he treated his wife more kindly than in his dream, she would be happier. Aslan recalls that he never asked his wife if she was happy and wanted to return to her family. Now the fair-haired man understands that living under a false name and constantly relying on her husband will not make anyone happy. The Duke returns to his men and tells them to stay here and report if anything happens to Helena. When the knight asks where he is heading now, Aslan replies that he needs to finish one thing, after which he will return. Rosalind jumps up from her seat upon hearing the news that the Duke is returning. The red-haired girl asks the maid if the Duchess is going with Aslan, to which she replies that for some reason the gentleman is going alone. After these words, a happy smile appears on the girl's face. Rosalina immediately runs out of the room, rejoicing at the fact that everything is over between the heroes. The Duke returns to the mansion, where he immediately begins to think about his next steps. The man intends to first return Helena to her real name and prevent her from being separated from her family again. The red-haired girl quickly walks down the stairs and runs towards her lover. The girl tells the Duke that she was very worried about him, as she was afraid that he would return wounded because of the Duchess. Aslan gloomily asks Rosalind what she means. The girl tells the Duke that the fair-haired girl asked him to take care of him, both at the ball and the next day. The red-haired woman assures the man that if Helena loved him, she would never have said that. Aslan shudders, remembering that the day after the ball was Rayla's birthday. That day, the fair-haired man told Lady Faridot to go shopping without him, as he had plans with the Duchess. The red-haired girl then said that she met Mrs. Tordell on her way here, and she said that she was not feeling well, so she would rest alone. Rosalina happily asked Aslan to spend the day with her since his plans were cancelled. The man irritably replied to the girl that, as she had asked, he had taken her to the ball so that she would tell him about Glock. The Duke approached the red-haired girl's ear and demanded that she finally tell him the promised information. Aslan sighs, realizing that he has made another mistake. The fair-haired man turns to the Duchess's maid, asking her if she was with Helena that morning. Upon hearing a positive answer, the man asks if it was correctly conveyed to his wife that since he had plans with her, Lady Faridot went shopping alone. Jenna replies that this is not true, since she heard that the Duke went to buy new dresses for Rosalind as thanks for her being with him at the ball. The red-haired girl immediately begins to justify herself, saying that the maid is mistaken, but she is immediately interrupted. Aslan tells Lady Faridot that it is his fault, as he should not have allowed her to behave as she pleased. The man turns his hate-filled gaze to the girl and says that he has been too kind to her. The Duke says to send the red-haired one to Amber's house, and if Glock tries to approach her, he must be immediately captured and sent to him. Aslan orders his men to drive out Lady Faridot after capturing the ash-haired man. After this, the blonde man directs his furious gaze at Rosalina and tells everyone not to let this girl get close to his wife. The maids take the Baron's daughter by the arms to keep her away from the Duke, while he tells her that she has a little time to collect her things. The maids take the red-haired girl to her room, while she tries to resist. Dalton informs the gentleman that the guards remaining in Ellawood have sent a telegram. The Duke's eyes widen when he reads that Mr. Violet left the village to buy some fever reducer. Aslan worriedly thinks that the girl could have caught a cold when she left the house on a cold morning. The man starts to walk excitedly from side to side, thinking about how he can send his doctor to the village. In the end, the blonde man decides to go to Ellawood with the doctor. Dalton advises the Duke to rest after his previous trip. To this, Aslan sharply replies that he will sleep on the train, because the Duchess's health is above all else. Rayla's loud sneeze can be heard throughout Violet's family home. The mother shouts at her daughter that she told her to dress warmer. The girl's father gives her some cold medicine so that she can drink it and get a good night's sleep afterwards. The main character's parents worryingly tell their daughter that she must have been miserable without them. However, Rayla awkwardly replies that the Duke took good care of her. The fair-haired girl remembers that every time she was sick, Aslan was there. Even in those moments when the girl thought that Jenna was next to her, it turned out that her husband was looking after her. The heroine nervously fiddles with her fingers, trying to force herself to think less about the blonde man. Standing at the station, the Duke asks the doctor to hurry, as the train is about to depart. While the men are hurrying to the transport, a masked man watches them from around the corner. Noticing that the Duke is now unguarded, the stranger with the scar on his eye begins to act. The doctor notices the horses rushing towards them and warns the master about it with a shout. However, Aslan does not have time to react, and a cart rushes at him at great speed. The transport disappears from sight, and the bloody Duke ends up unconscious on the cold ground. The blonde asks the girl dressed in a black dress to repeat what she just said. Helena Larestin repeats her words in a calm tone, asking Duke Tordel to marry her. Slightly stumbling, the blonde says that she knows what the man is hiding. Aslan's eyes become serious, and beads of sweat appear on his forehead. The girl says that she knows that the Duke's mother killed his father, and he disguised it as an accident and hid the woman in a monastery. To this, the man nervously says that he doesn't know what they're talking about. Helena once again asks Aslan to marry her for only 3 years. The fair-haired woman promises that after this time she will leave the Duke, as if nothing had happened. The blonde man comes to his senses and immediately thinks that he had a very strange dream. When a man lifts himself up, he feels as if his head is ready to split at any moment. Hearing that the gentleman had woken up, Dalton immediately hurried to him with the doctor. The servant informs the Duke that he was run over by a cart, so he might not come to his senses. Aslan is already starting to rise, but the doctor immediately stops him, saying that he has not yet fully recovered. The blonde man puts his hand to the bandage, asking what kind of accident they are talking about. Dalton reminds the gentleman that he was heading to the station to visit his wife. Hearing this, Aslan is surprised and says who they are talking about, because he is not married yet. These words leave the man in a stupor. Dalton leans towards the gentleman, asking if he heard him correctly just now. The blonde man asks those present why they look much older than he remembers them. The Duke's servant excitedly asks the doctor what is happening, to which he replies that it could be the consequences of the shock he experienced. The doctor excitedly asks Aslan how old he is now. To this, the man says that he is, of course, 20 years old. Dalton hesitantly asks the blonde man if he remembers anything after 20. Aslan frowns, saying that he does not understand what his servant is talking about. Dalton takes the gentleman to look at a portrait of him and his wife. The man tells the Duke that he has been married to this girl for 3 years, but this does not help the blonde man to regain his memories. However, Aslan remembers a dream in which the same girl blackmailed him into marrying her, so he comes to the conclusion that this is how they ended up together. The blonde man is distracted from these thoughts and asks Dalton what happened to the business. The Duke explains that he is talking about the Tordel family's railway business. The servant shows the man business documents, which state that the entire western branch belongs to them. Dalton tells the gentleman that he was the first to take possession of the eastern and northern branches, so the reputation of the Tordel family has increased greatly. Aslan, out of habit, opens the drawer where the cigars always lay. To this, the servant, with a little awkwardness, tells the master that he has not smoked for 3 years. Dalton explains to the Duke that he gave up smoking because the Duchess is in poor health, and if she were to smell cigarettes, she might become ill. The fair-haired man notes to himself that this girl is mentioned in every case. Aslan carefully reads the document, after which he says that their marriage was by contract and that the contract expired recently. The man does not understand why he married a girl from an ordinary family, since she could not have become a normal duchess. Dalton tells the Duke that it was his personal decision, so no one knows the details. Aslan thinks that, apparently, he treated the fair-haired woman as his beloved wife, so as not to show that she was threatening him. The servant suggests that the master meet the Duchess again to restore his memories. The blonde man is not thrilled with this idea as he knows that he has already visited his wife and returned empty-handed. Dalton still insists on his idea, since the healer told him to communicate with those he knew before in order to bring back his memories. Then Aslan decides to invite the red-haired girl who is staying in his house. Rosalina sighs with relief that the Duke has finally woken up and tells him that she was very worried about the accident. To this, the fair-haired man says that he was told that he ordered the Baron's daughter to be sent to Amber's house and then kicked out. Hearing this, the red-haired girl realizes that the man really has lost his memory, so this is her chance. Rosalina tells Aslan that there was a misunderstanding because her ex-lover contacted her. The girl assumes that the Duke's order was connected with the fact that he thought that she still had feelings for her ex. The fair-haired man asks the Baron's daughter in surprise why this made him angry. Rosalina shyly replies that it is because they love each other, and this answer visibly amuses the man. The red-haired girl says that it is true because the Duke paid off all her debts and brought her to this mansion. The girl tells Aslan that she and the Duchess had a fictitious marriage, and he even told her that they simply lived without interfering with each other. The man's memories flash back to a scene where he actually said this to Rosalind. The red-haired girl continues, saying that because of the danger that her former lover might harm her, the Duke asked to inform him if anything happened. The Baron's daughter claims that the fair-haired man ordered that Glock Laristan be found and that he was not to be missed at any cost. Aslan thinks about the girl's words, remembering something similar. The man begins to believe the red-haired woman and notices that she has a rather pretty face. However, the Duke still cannot believe that he actually committed such an immoral act as treason. The blonde man asks Rosalina what he did wrong, because she was seeing another man. The red-haired girl says that it was that man who found her and started threatening her, but she managed to escape. Aslan turns his gaze to Dalton, asking him if he can trust this girl's words. The servant replies that he does not know all the details, but the reason he is angry with Rosalind is because she did not treat the Duchess properly. The fair-haired man comes to the conclusion that until the end of the marriage contract, he constantly pleased his wife, and then left the guards with her so that she would not tell his secret. However, the man understands that there is some reason why he did not get rid of his wife immediately, so he cannot act rashly until all the memories return. Aslan allows Lady Faridot to stay with him for now. The Duke asks Rosalind to help him regain his memories. The fever has finally gone down, so Violet's family celebrates Rayla's recovery. The blonde smiles awkwardly, saying that she already told them that it was just a slight cold. The parents hug their daughter and offer her something tasty to eat to celebrate the drop in temperature, while his sister refuses new ideas for the celebration. Aiden decides to read the latest newspaper. On the front page, a young man reads aloud a headline that says there has been an accident at the central station. The main character has to read this news because the accident site is located near her ex-husband. When the girl learns the details of the incident, she drops the cup in shock, breaking it. Rayla tells the family in a trembling voice that the newspaper said that Aslan had an accident. The parents of the fair-haired girl excitedly ask how badly the Duke was hurt. The girl reads aloud that Aslan Tordel did not leave the house for several days, and probably he suffered greatly. The main character cannot believe what happened, so she no longer holds back her tears. The girl's mother suggests that she visit the Duke if she is too worried. Mr. Violet supports his wife, telling the blonde that she can just come visit Aslan because they lived together for 3 years, so it is normal to worry about each other. Lady Faridot excitedly tells the Duke how she put on the dress he gave her and they went to the ball together. Rosalind says that everyone said that the atmosphere of the ball became much more luxurious because she came with Aslan instead of the Duchess. The man puts his hand to his head, trying unsuccessfully to remember these moments. The red-haired girl continues, saying that the Duke told her not to deny herself anything while she lived here. Rosalina moves closer to Aslan and reminds him that sometimes they spent time alone because he was worried about her. The fair-haired man pushes the Baron's daughter away from him and apologizes for not remembering anything like that. The man admits that he does not have any feelings for the girl, even when he looks at her. Rosalina decides not to miss her chance, as she understands that the Duchess has left and will not be able to throw her out the door. The red-haired girl smiles sweetly, telling the Duke that everything is fine and he can take his time, remembering everything. The girl takes Aslan's hand in hers, saying that she will be there. The blonde man is surprised that his taste in women has changed so much and cannot understand why he let such a girl get close to him. The man was never interested in the red-haired girl's type. Aslan realizes that the simple and innocent girl depicted in the family portrait perfectly suits his type. The Duke asks Dalton to come in and asks him how things are going with finding the culprit of the accident. The servant informs the master that the man was wearing a mask, so he could not be recognized. Dalton also tells the fair-haired man that since he has not gone outside for a long time, rumors have spread everywhere that the Duke is suffering greatly because of the divorce. Aslan sighs deeply, realizing that the company's shares will fall in price if he leaves things like this. Rosalina distracts the man from his thoughts by inviting him to go out with her to have lunch. The Baron's daughter says that a walk with a girl will help her to tell him about her good health. Aslan thinks about it and comes to the conclusion that this is a good proposal because it will save him from unnecessary problems. The blonde man stands in front of the girl and extends his hand to her, inviting Lady Faridot to take a walk together. Ryla tells her father that he can go alone, but he immediately interrupts her, expressing concern that she might be kidnapped again. The man says that if anyone finds out about his daughter, she can simply say that he is carrying her luggage. Mr. Violet laughs and asks the blonde where she is going, addressing her as Mistress Helena. The main character understands that Aslan most likely no longer cares about her, but she is too worried about him, so she is ready to turn a blind eye to this. Rayla decides to just look at the Duke from afar and then leave. Rosalina shows the blonde her new bright yellow outfit. The man says that this dress suits the girl especially well. Aslan suggests going to a jewelry store so that the red-haired girl can become even more beautiful thanks to jewelry that matches this outfit. Passers-by notice a couple walking down the street and recognize them as Duke Tordel and Lady Faridot. Hearing people talk about them, the blonde decides that this will be enough to make the rumors about his accident disappear. Rosalina glances at the people and notices Duchess Tordel among the crowd. At the same time, Rayla looks at her lovers in shock. The heroine presses her hand to her heart and cannot understand why she feels so much pain inside again. The girl covers her face, deciding to leave because she saw that Aslan was not hurt, although he looked a little pale. The red-haired girl clings to the Duke's hand, afraid that if he sees his wife, his memory might return. Rosalina stumbles, pretending to draw attention to herself so that the blonde man would never cross paths with the Duchess. Aslan asks in confusion what happened, to which the girl replies that she tripped because of her new shoes, which were a little tight. The red-haired girl's eyes fill with tears, and she says that she won't be able to walk because of the severe pain in her ankle. The Duke sighs and lifts the Baron's daughter into his arms. The Baron's daughter asks the man if he is bothered by the people watching them, to which he replies that they came out to show themselves to them. Grinning, Rosalina tells Aslan that in that case, the people are definitely convinced that everything is okay with him, after which the girl approaches the blonde man's face and kisses him on the cheek. The blonde lowers her head so as not to see this, while everyone begins to talk admiringly about this couple. Rayla quickly gets out of the crowd, thinking that Aslan is completely healthy, so she doesn't have to worry. Mr. Violet greets his daughter, saying that he bought them strawberry waffles. The girl pulls her father away from the gathered people, suggesting that they go somewhere to eat. Suddenly, someone calls out to the heroine, calling her Duchess. The blonde turns around and sees Jenna in front of her, who immediately runs up, happily saying that she is finally back. Ryla says, with a little awkwardness, that this is not true, and she is only here because she had business in the capital. The maid says that the Duchess needs to return to the mansion immediately, as the situation is urgent. Jenna tells Madame Helena that the Duke has lost his memory and remembers nothing after 20 years, which is what Rosalina took advantage of to become his lover. The fair-haired woman asks the maid why Lady Faridot would do such a thing, since they had been in a romantic relationship before. However, Jenna claims that this is absolutely not true, because the red-haired one brazenly deceived the mistress. The maid says that when the Duke found out about the deception, he became very angry and ordered the girl to be thrown out. Rayla's eyes widen when she hears that Aslan wanted to rush to her with a doctor after learning that she was ill, but he got into an accident. The blonde can't believe Jenna's words, as she is sure that the blonde was irritated by their contract marriage. The maid takes the mistress's hands in hers, saying that the doctor told the Duke to communicate with loved ones to restore his memory. The maid asks the main character to try to meet Aslan, while she takes care of Lady Faridot. A joyful Rosalina asks the blonde man if it is too heavy for him to carry her. The man says that the girl used to be lighter, but assumes that the weight change was due to her clothes. The Baron's daughter asks in bewilderment what the Duke was talking about earlier. Aslan says that he vaguely remembers that he used to often carry her in his arms because of fainting spells during illness. The image of his wife suddenly appears in the man's memories. The blonde man shudders, not understanding what just happened. The Duke lowers Lady Faridot to the ground and asks Dalton to escort her to the mansion. Aslan tells the servant that he has a lot of things to do, so he will go to his office. In the evening, the man reflects on the fact that, while communicating with Rosalina, he could not remember anything, and the scenes that pop up in his thoughts seem not connected with her. The scene he saw during his walk with the Baron's daughter comes back to the Duke's mind. Suddenly, a servant comes to Aslan and tells him that the Duchess has come to see him. The man is very surprised by this, so he answers the servant in confusion to let the girl in. Helena Larestin enters the Duke's office, looking confidently into his eyes. When the blonde man and the Duchess meet eyes, the man remembers how she confessed her love to him. The girl, with tears in her eyes, asks the Duke to pay attention to her and not to Rosalina Faridot. Aslan was also flooded with other memories that merged together, causing him to no longer understand when and what happened. Seeing that the man has turned pale, Rayla runs up to him, asking if he is okay. The blonde moves the Duke's hand away from his face and notices that his face has turned very red. Aslan turns his head sharply to the side, thereby showing that he does not want Helena to touch him any further. The blonde man acted this way because in his memories, the girl threatened him, forcing him to marry her for 3 years. The Duke clenches his hand into a fist, not understanding why. Looking into the Duchess's eyes, he felt that he loved her. The man turns away from the main character and asks her what brought her to the Tordell mansion, since the contract has already expired. The girl again, just like 3 years ago, asks Aslan if he remembers her, but now she does it much more confidently. The blonde looks down at the floor and reminds the Duke that her name is Helena Larestin. The blonde man's breath hitches as memories come flooding back. Aslan cannot understand who this girl is to him, since he could not remember anything about Lady Faridot. The heroine tells the man that she heard about the accident that caused him to lose his memory. Helena also says she knows about the doctor's recommendation to communicate with loved ones from the past. Therefore, the fair-haired girl offers to help the Duke restore his memory. Aslan feels that when he looks at the Duchess, he cannot hide his emotions because of the overwhelming feelings. The only thing the blonde can think about is that he wants to hug and kiss the girl standing in front of him. The main character tries to touch the man again, but he immediately pushes her hand away. Aslan thinks that he should never reveal his weak spot because he still remembers the threats from the fair-haired girl. The man smirks, saying that Helena only came to him because of rumors, hoping to live at his expense a little longer. The Duchess lowers her head and takes a step back, convincing the blonde that this is not what she is here for. Tears begin to flow down the heroine's cheeks as she tells Aslan that she was simply worried about him. Although the Duke understands that the fair-haired girl threatened and used him, he still feels a strong sadness in his soul because of her tears. The blonde man feels like if he doesn't touch Helena right now, his heart might stop. The man extends his hand to the girl, but they are immediately interrupted by a knock on the door. The blue-haired man enters the office, informing the gentleman that Lady Faridot has come to see him. The Duke allows the girl to enter, after which she immediately runs into the room. The red-haired girl is horrified by Aslan's appearance. The Baron's daughter approaches the man, saying that she was very worried that he might become ill while working, which is why she came. Feeling the touch on his cheek, the Duke realizes that next to this girl, his heart does not flutter. The blonde-haired man feels much better, so he puts his head on the red-haired woman's shoulder to finally calm down. Rosalina hugs the man, thinking that she needs to make him throw Helena out and never see her again. The Baron's daughter yells at the blonde, asking why she came here, since her relationship with the Duke has ended. Lady Faridot accuses the fair-haired woman of taking advantage of Aslan's kindness for 3 years and continues to pester him to return to a life of luxury. Rosalina starts yelling even louder at Helena to get out of the mansion immediately and not dare to appear here again. Looking at how the red-haired girl treats the Duke with care, and he calmly accepts this care, the main character leaves the office. Rayla's hands drop, because now she fully realizes that she and Aslan had nothing in common except the contract. The girl returns to her father, who immediately approaches her, asking if she has spoken with the Duke. The blonde smiles tensely and says that everything is fine with the man, so they can go home. The heroine takes her father away from the mansion, offering to buy her mother and Aiden some kind of gift. Rayla remembers the words of the red-haired woman and thinks that Rosalina is right, that the now ex-wife should not come to Aslan. The doctor informs those gathered that the Duke's condition has worsened because he has been moving around a lot. At the same time, memories from his meeting with Helena continued to surface in the blonde man's memory. The man still couldn't figure out if he was happy when he lived with his wife. Aslan can't even imagine living happily with someone after his mother went crazy. The only thing that filled the woman's thoughts was the desire to kill. The blonde man tried to calm the Duchess down, but was stabbed in response. Because the man's mother had lost her mind, he had to lock her up in a monastery and make his father's death look like an accident. After this incident, Aslan stopped being interested in girls. The Duke lived his life completely immersed in his work until one day a girl appeared and began to blackmail him. Lady Faridot turns to the healer, asking him why the fair-haired man is always sleeping. The doctor answers the red-haired woman that this is how a man's damaged brain and mind are restored. After these words, Rosalina begins to worry greatly that Aslan's memory began to return after meeting the Duchess. The man dreams about Helena Laristan again. The heroes are in a monastery where the fair-haired man's mother lives. Suddenly, Aslan realizes that his mother's funeral is taking place. With tears in her eyes, the blonde says goodbye to Grace, telling her that she can now retire in peace. The man looks at the girl in surprise, not understanding why she is crying harder than him. The Duke notes that although the fair-haired girl is not the first beauty, she is very graceful and neat. Aslan offers the stranger a handkerchief, saying that she needs it more now, and gives his name. Helena realizes that it is Grace's son standing in front of her now, but tells him that they are not at all alike. The girl takes the offered handkerchief and wipes away her tears. The blonde apologizes for getting the man's things dirty and promises to wash them and return them later. Aslan wonders why he fell in love with Helena and suggests that it might have been because of his feelings of loneliness after his mother's death. However, the man still doesn't want to think that he wanted to live with the blonde. The Duke's feelings for the girl were distorted and tainted by her threats. Helena irritated Aslan, so he hurt her in every way possible. so that she would not realize that he was in love with her. When the Duchess cried and begged him for something, the man felt satisfaction. After rumors that the Duke had proposed to Lady Faridot, the fair-haired girl could not stand it and left him, because of which Aslan threw himself off the cliff, thinking at that moment only about Helena Laristine. The blonde-haired man finally comes to his senses, and the red-haired woman immediately runs up to him. The man can't believe what he saw. He jumped, missing Helena. The Duke recalls Dalton saying that people began to say that he was suffering greatly because of the divorce. Aslan can't stop wondering why he did this. The man thinks that although it was an ordinary dream, the feelings in it were too realistic. The fair-haired man doesn't understand how the fact that the brown-haired woman isn't around could drive him to despair. Aslan feels with his whole body that he wants to find Helena, to begin begging her to return to him. Seeing the Duke's condition, Rosalina decides to urgently call him a doctor. However, the blonde man stops the girl, asking her not to call anyone. A man doesn't want anyone to see his weaknesses. Aslan pulls Rosalind into his lap. Due to such an unexpected action, the face of the Baron's daughter becomes the same color as her hair. The Duke reflects on how, when he is with the red-haired girl, he does not feel the pain of memories. A man asks Lady Faridot if he proposed to her. Looking at the Duke with loving eyes, Rosalina replies that not yet. Aslan proposes to the Baron's daughter to marry him as soon as he sorts out the papers for divorce from his wife. The red-haired woman immediately hugs the man, joyfully shouting that she agrees. The Duke still doesn't understand why she was so sincere with Helena, but he no longer intends to let her twist him around her finger. The fair-haired man decides to break all ties with the Duchess in order to come to his senses. Rosalina's face can't seem to shake off the happy smile, as she was sure that Aslan would kick her out when he remembered everything. On the train, Rayla overhears people discussing the news that Duke Tordel is getting married again, as Lady Faridot has contacted the best wedding dress designer in the capital. The girls sitting nearby also decided to discuss what would happen to Helena Tordel when the court approved the divorce papers. The fair-haired girl sighs at the thought that everything turned out as in the novel, and no matter how hard she tries, it is impossible to change fate. Dalton asks the Duke if he really wants to marry Lady Faridot, since he has not yet completely divorced the Duchess. In response to this, Aslan asks the servant to restore the torn documents with the girl's signature and bring them to him. The blonde man claims that he does not want to see the one whom everyone in the mansion calls the Duchess. Dalton disagrees with the man, as his memory has not yet returned. The Duke interrupts the servant, irritably telling him not to interfere in his decisions anymore, even if he allowed it before. Dalton apologizes for going too far and asks where the master wants to hold the ceremony. The blonde man asks where he did it last time, to which he receives the answer that it was in the largest church in the capital. Aslan is surprised by the servant's words, so he asks him again if the ceremony was held in the monastery where his mother died. Dalton immediately replies that this definitely did not happen, because the elder lady is alive. The man tells the blonde that his mother's health has become weaker, but she is still alive. The Duke hesitantly asks where he met Helena, to which the servant replies that it happened at a banquet, after which the young girl came to him, and that same day they announced their engagement. A memory flashes through Aslan's mind, where the fair-haired girl falls to her knees and begs for help, telling him that she was kidnapped by Count Laristine. The fair-haired man cannot understand what kind of scenes he saw in the monastery. Realizing that his dreams had misled him and that Helena Laristine might not have threatened him, the Duke orders the wedding preparations to be stopped. A little boy sits in front of the doors, covering his ears with trembling hands. However, the fair-haired man still hears the piercing scream of his mother, who begs her husband not to touch their son. Tears start streaming down the boy's face when he hears his mother say that it would be better for her husband to beat her than the child. Since childhood, Aslan had one goal: to kill his father and become free with his mother. At 18, the boy had the perfect plan to kill his father and make it look like an accident. However, one day the blonde man's father found out about everything. The man, smiling, said that it was still unknown which of them would die first. Aslan then declared that people like his father should simply be killed. For these words, Grace's husband hit the young man, knocking him down, and completely enraged, grabbed a kitchen knife from the table. The man swung a piece of cutlery at his son, but before he could harm him, he fell down dead. Grace stabbed her husband in the body with another table knife, killing him. Aslan hurried to his mother to calm her down, but the woman began to shout at him not to touch their son. That day, Grace lost her mind due to shock and was unable to distinguish the young man from her husband. Every time the fair-haired man came to the monastery, his mother had an attack and went crazy. In order not to traumatize the woman's psyche even more, Aslan decided not to visit her anymore. The Duke reads documents which state that there was no improvement from that day on, and that the mother never saw her son again. However, the man is sure that the woman is still alive, because news comes from the monastery periodically. Aslan then wonders if those memories were just a dream, and he really married Helena for love. A red-haired woman comes into Duke Tordel's office. The girl tells the man that she has been given news that preparations for the wedding have been stopped. The blonde man says that there is no mistake here, as he needs to check something. The man is silent for a moment, and then says that this test also concerns Lady Faridot. The Duke asks the girl if he told her that he has an arranged marriage with Helena, and that they have simply lived together for 3 years. The red-haired one confirms that such a conversation took place between them. Aslan remembers that he said exactly this, but he cannot understand why he lied if he truly loved his wife. Due to the Duke's prolonged silence, the Baron's daughter becomes anxious, because if he remembers everything, he will kick her out again. Under the blonde man's hand, the girl notices a document that talks about a monastery. Rosalina recalls that she heard that Mother Aslana had been undergoing treatment in the monastery for a long time. The red-haired woman confidently states that the Duke told her for sure that he did not marry the Duchess for love. The girl says that this is why the man did not invite his mother to the ceremony, as well as Count Laristan, who was against their marriage. Aslan mentally agrees with the words of the Baron's daughter, because when he receives letters from his mother, he always really wants to go and meet her. The man recalls that one day Helena noticed that he was reading something enthusiastically. Then the Duke hid the paper behind his back, but the fair-haired girl was able to understand that this letter came from the monastery from his mother. The fair-haired man agreed with the Duchess, saying that Grace congratulated them on their engagement and apologized that due to health reasons, she was unable to attend in person. The main character recalls that Aslan's mother from the novel did not see her son until her death due to problems with her head. The fair-haired woman suggests visiting the woman by going to the monastery together, even though they are not a real couple. The Duke, with sadness in his voice, answers his wife that his mother will not want to see him, since they are not on the best terms with her. The main character understood everything and decided not to ask the man about it. The girl then said that Aslan might not say anything if it was a difficult topic for him. The fair-haired woman promised that she would pray for her husband and his mother. The Duke appreciated Rayla for not using his secret against him, for not asking him questions, and for simply staying by his side. After the memories, Aslan abruptly says that he must meet Helena. The blonde man tells Rosalind that he is postponing their wedding until he remembers everything. The Duke says he cannot make such an important decision in this state. The man calls Dalton and asks him to buy him a train ticket to Ellawood, as he feels he must meet Helena. Rosalina runs up to the blonde man, begging him not to do this to her. The girl tugs at the Duke's sleeve, saying that last time his condition worsened greatly after meeting the Duchess, so she is afraid that it might happen again. Lady Faridot asks Aslan to take his time and have a good rest to recover. The man interrupts the red-haired woman, saying that he does not experience any emotions or feelings when he is around her. The blonde man pulls his hand away, stating that he is certain that he never loved Rosalina. The Duke says that he doesn't know why he brought the girl into his house, but he is absolutely certain that she will not help him regain his memory. Aslan orders the servant to do as he told them earlier, to send Lady Faridot to Amber's house. The redhead reminds the man that it was a simple misunderstanding, but he says that he will decide whether it was so after he remembers everything. Dalton takes Rosalind away, telling her that he will ask her to buy tickets for the next train, and asks the servants to prepare the luggage quickly. When the blonde finally finds himself in silence, he thinks about how he still can't figure out what is true and what is false. However, Aslan is sure that when Helena Laristine was around, he was happy. The maids bring the red-haired one into Amber's house and immediately get ready to leave. Rosalina stops them, asking the girls where they are going. The Baron's daughter says that she must be served, since she cannot live alone. One of the maids informs Lady Faridot that their master did not ask them to look after her, and that they will be busy preparing the room for their mistress, who will return soon. Early in the morning, Raila's parents enter her room and are surprised by their daughter's early rise. The girl's mother notices dark circles under her eyes and immediately realizes that the blonde hadn't slept all night. A woman calls her husband, intending to talk about something. Mrs. Violet asks the man if their daughter was able to meet the Duke. Mr. Violet replies that Rayla saw her husband, but he felt that there was some misunderstanding between them. The man recalls that his daughter looked like she was about to cry, so it appears that it was more than just a simple argument. Mr. Violet thinks that when the fair-haired girl lived with Aslan, she constantly wrote that she was happy next to him. The man starts crying because Rayla prefers living with the Duke rather than with them, for which he immediately gets a beating from his wife. The woman sighs, saying that although she is glad that their daughter wanted to live with us, she cannot watch her daughter suffer without forgetting Aslan. The main character repeatedly replays the moment when her husband said that she came to him only because of rumors about memory loss, wanting to live at his expense. The blonde can't believe that the Duke spoke to her so rudely. Rayla reflects that if such a kind person as Aslan was so angry with her, then it means he thought about her like that for all 3 years. The girl blames herself for not noticing this, and for being mistaken that the blonde man could love her. The Duke arrives at Eris Station, where the Duchess lives. The man notices that the village station is very clean, to which the servant says that this station was personally arranged by Aslan. These words greatly surprise the blonde man. The knight reminds the Duke that, on his personal orders, even in such a small village, they laid rails and built a station. Aslan does not understand why he did this, but he guesses that most likely it was done because of Helena Laristine. While embroidering, the blonde accidentally cuts her finger with a needle. The girl remembers how Aslan once told her to be careful, because such beautiful fingers should not bleed. The heroine tries to push these thoughts away from herself, since the Duke was so kind to her, only out of a feeling of pity. Suddenly, Rayla's brother runs into her room without knocking. Aiden asks his sister to come down quickly, saying that her husband has arrived to visit them. The blonde immediately gets up from her seat and runs to the stairs. The heroine goes down to the first floor and asks the Duke what brought him here. The man's gaze falls on the girl's fingertips, on one of which he notices blood. Aslan goes to meet his wife, telling her to be careful, because blood should not come from her beautiful fingers. Hearing this phrase, Rayla accidentally stumbles and begins to fall. The Duke manages to react and catches the blonde, pressing her tightly to his chest. The man apologizes, awkwardly saying that the body moved on its own. Aslan sighs and says that, apparently, the body, unlike the head, remembers everything. The blonde man approaches the girl's parents, saying that his wife has injured her finger, so he needs ointment and bandages. The woman smiles softly and invites the man to go into the room while they bring everything. After some time, Rayla says in amazement that the Duke really doesn't remember anything. Aslan tells his wife that he does not remember anything from the last 5 years and does not know how they met and why their marriage came to an abrupt end. Now the main character understands that Jenna told her the truth back then. Rayla realizes that the blonde man was so cold towards her only because he couldn't remember her. Cutting off the bandage, Aslan turns to the fair-haired girl for help. The Duke asks the girl to explain to him in detail what kind of relationship they have and why she left him. The heroine, confused, replies that they had a marriage contract for 3 years and it ended this year, and the man just happened to have a girlfriend. Rayla sighs, thinking that Aslan loved Rosalina even before he lost his memory, so she needs to stop hoping for anything. The blonde smiles widely, saying that their contract has come to an end, so the Duke no longer needs to worry about her. The main character asks the fair-haired man to return back to the capital, to the person who is really waiting for him. Aslan notices that the girl looks much thinner and paler than he remembers her. The man asks Rayla many questions about her health and nutrition. The girl begins to wave him off, convincing the Duke that she is fine, but she is suddenly overcome by a cough. Aslan immediately rises from his seat to pour hot water for the fair-haired girl. The fair-haired man says that now he remembered that his wife is in poor health. The main character's eyes widen when the man admits that he only remembers everything when he is next to her. The Duke says he would like to live with his wife's family for a while. Aslan assures Rayla that if he is near her, his memory will be restored faster, since they were already spouses who lived in the same house. The blonde guy throws his jacket over the girl, saying that he has to remember everything. The man squats down in front of the blonde, begging her to let him stay here. Rosalina tries to light a fire in the fireplace with matches, but they break every time. The red-haired girl is thinking about selling her things to buy firewood. The girl presses her knees to her stomach, feeling that it is almost empty due to the lack of food. The Baron's daughter tried to ask her friends for help, but they all just laughed at her, calling her a homewrecker. Rosalina realizes that the girls were only kind to her when it was beneficial to them. After the red-haired girl was kicked out of the duchy, her position in society became even worse than Helena's. Tears appear in the eyes of the Baron's daughter when she thinks that if she had been born into a better family, everything would have been different. Suddenly, the girl hears someone calling her pathetic. The owner of the voice turns out to be Glock, who is sitting on the window and looking at the red-haired girl with a grin on his face. Ash-haired asks Rosalina why she is in such a desperate situation now when she arrogantly ran away earlier, slapping him. The Baron's daughter screams that it is useless to threaten now, since she has nothing to give the man. Then Glock kicks the girl's luggage, from which a huge amount of expensive clothes and jewelry falls out. The ash-haired man holds up a sparkling azure brooch and says that Rosalina has many valuable things. Mrs. Violet happily asks the Duke if he likes their food. A man praises a woman's superbly prepared apple salad. Then Mr. Violet offers to treat himself to their signature apple jam and tells the Duke to make himself at home. The blonde man says that he can't sit idle, so he asks to contact him if he needs help. The woman nudges her daughter, telling her and Aslan to spend time together instead of working. The family offer to show the man around their home, as he has come a long way to visit them. The man leans towards the girl and whispers to her that he would very much like to walk through their house and see where his wife lives. The heroine looks away, saying that they are no longer a couple. However, Violet's family tells the blonde that the appeal is not so important because the Duke is their benefactor. The girl's brother urges his sister, and their parents tell their daughter that they will prepare Aiden's room for the blonde. The young man winks at the heroes, saying that while Aslan is staying in their house, he will sleep with his father. Rayla takes the Duke to her room and tells him that this used to be her father's study, but now this room has become hers. The fair-haired woman says that from here, you can see the lilac flowers that Mr. Violet looked at every time and thought about her. Aslan notes that his wife has a good relationship with her family. The main character says that this is all because they lost their daughter at an early age and spent 10 years apart from her. The Duke shudders when he hears this and asks his wife what she means. Rayla explains to the man that she was kidnapped by Count Laristine when she was 10 years old. And when she ran away, she had nowhere to go. So he took pity on her and married her. The girl also reminds Aslan that he later helped her start communicating with her real family. The fair-haired man asks the fair-haired woman if that is why she calls their marriage an arranged marriage. The main character says that they agreed to live in marriage for 3 years until she comes of age. Then the man asks what he got in return for the marriage. Rayla replies that the Duke received nothing for this, although she offered to give him the entire inheritance of Laristine, but he refused. Aslan says that the Countess's inheritance, which the fair-haired girl inherited, is an insignificant sum for him. The fair-haired man decides to ask his wife again whether she offered him anything other than wealth, to which the heroine awkwardly says that she could not offer anything more. The girl says that the Duke is simply too kind, so he took pity on her after she told him her story. Rayla calls the man a very compassionate and sympathetic person. Hearing such a description, Aslan smiles, saying that he would never have thought that people would talk about him like that. The fair-haired girl asks in confusion what the Duke is talking about. The blonde explains that he is a businessman who does everything for profit and even does charity work for profit. However, the girl does not agree with the man, saying that although they were just a fake couple, he always took care of her for free. Rayla confesses to Aslan that she has been happy with him all these 3 years. The blonde man approaches the girl and says that his attitude only means that he loved her very much. The heroine cannot believe her ears. The Duke says there is no other explanation, because from birth he has never been kind to anyone, unless it was to his disadvantage. Rayla says, in disbelief, that this can't be true. Then Aslan explains to his wife that she is the one who could not give him either money or fame, but he still tried to make her happy. The blonde man turns to Helena, saying that her very existence was the most valuable thing to him. The heroine thinks that the Duke is simply confused due to memory loss. Rayla tells the man that their life together has irritated him for the past 3 years because they did not marry for love. Aslan realizes that the blonde is talking about a conversation with Rosalina Faridot. The girl says that this is true and reminds that they had lunch with Rosalina when she was sick, and even on her birthday he was not with her, but with the red-haired one. Rayla raises her voice and shouts at the man that the one he loved was Lady Faridot, not her. Aslan says that although he has not regained all his memories, he is sure that when he spoke those words to Rosalind, they had no meaning to him. The blonde guy says that he was irritated that during their entire marriage, the girl never said that she loved him. The man says that although he made Helena happy in her marriage, he never asked her to spend her whole life with him. To this, Rayla only asks the Duke in bewilderment what he is talking about. Aslan, surprised, asks the fair-haired girl if he ever told her that he loved her. Having heard a negative answer, the blonde man asks his wife that maybe he showed his love with his body. Realizing what the man is talking about, Rayla screams that they never shared a bed. The girl says that they slept together several times, but only because they thought the servant suspected something. Aslan turns away from the fair-haired girl and barely audibly tells himself that he held up well. The blonde explains that he most likely waited for Helena to propose herself, since he had never confessed his love to a girl before and was apparently embarrassed. The main character feels awkward and asks the man why he is saying such nonsense. Rayla thinks that she cannot step on the same rake again. The girl turns away from the Duke and tells him that there was a misunderstanding. The fair-haired woman says that Aslan cannot judge sensibly, since all of his memories have not returned to him. The main character assures the man that when his memory returns, he will understand that he got it all wrong. The fair-haired man says that this option cannot be ruled out either. However, the Duke says that this is precisely why he must stay with the girl longer. After 2 days, Aslan fits in well with the main character's family. The man asks Mrs. Violet if he is kneading the dough correctly, to which she replies that the Duke does an excellent job of anything he takes on. The blonde man smiles politely, asking if he should bring more firewood. The woman thanks Aslan for his help and asks her daughter to go with him. Ryla doesn't understand how she can help in this matter, to which the man tells her to just keep him company. Seeing how well her husband copes with household chores, the fair-haired woman asks how he manages to do it if he has never done them before. The blonde man tells his wife that chopping wood is very similar to training with a sword. The heroine also notes that Aslan is also excellent at cooking. The Duke smiles at this, saying that he was only repeating after others, and that he was not given anything difficult to do. The fair-haired man's servant comes to him with comfortable clothes and shoes, since those that Mr. Violet gave him turned out to be too small. Aslan asks the knight how things are going in the center, to which he receives the answer that Dalton is temporarily performing his duties. Having learned that everything is fine at home, the Duke thanks him for the report and sends the blue-haired man to rest. Rayla, with a little awkwardness, asks the fair-haired man if Lady Faridot is waiting for him at home. The main character gloomily says that the girl might find out that Aslan has been staying in his ex-wife's house for so long. To this, the Duke merely replies that they are still officially married. The fair-haired woman is very surprised by this and reminds Aslan that she left the divorce papers when she left the mansion. The man takes off his outer clothing and says that he knows about it because he personally tore them. The heroine is embarrassed by the Duke's actions, but still asks why he did not use the documents. Aslan tells the girl that he tore up the paper because he had no intention of divorcing her. The blonde man tells Rayla that Rosalina Faridot is not his lover. The man says that although he doesn't remember yet why he brought the red-haired woman into his house, the one he loved was definitely the Duchess. As proof, Aslan shows the wedding ring, which he wore without removing for all 3 years. Ryla recalls the rumors she heard on the train as she rode back to the village. The girls were talking about the Duke's ring, which had a name written inside that looked like the name of a flower. The ladies then came to the conclusion that the name Rosalind was engraved on the decoration. Remembering this, the blonde immediately asks her husband if he checked the name on the inside of the ring. The Duchess says that by looking at the engraving, a man will be able to understand exactly who he loved. The girl waits with bated breath for Aslan to take off the ring and learn the truth. The blonde man smiles and says that his wife was right. The Duke asks the girl to look at the ring, but she refuses to do so, shouting that she already knows whose name is there. Aslan shows the heroine a ring with Rayla's name engraved on the inside. The man says that if you take a quick look, the name can be confused with the name of a flower. The blonde smiles happily, saying that the more he listens to the girl, the more he becomes convinced that he loved only her. Aslan remembers that the fair-haired girl left, leaving behind her ring, which had no name inside. Rayla blushes and says it's because they had an arranged marriage. The Duke says understandingly that this marriage has most likely hit the Duchess's pride. However, now he sadly realizes that all these 3 years he has been unrequitedly in love with Rayla. Aslan says that because of pride, he could not confess and lost 3 years. So the girl got upset and left him. The blonde promises not to be such a fool anymore and to be more determined. The man promises to change the feelings of the blonde, that she fell in love with him as much as he fell in love with her. The main character is amazed at how much the character of Duke Tordel has changed. Rayla wonders if this is the Aslan she knew standing before her. Rosalina yells at Glock, begging him to leave her alone. The girl asks what else the man wants from her, since she has already sold everything to give him money. The ash-haired man smirks, saying that he can't be satisfied with just that. The red-haired woman says that there is nothing more she can give the man to stop him threatening her. Glock approaches Rosalina, asking if she really thinks he came to her just to get those pennies. The man suggests that the girl join forces and achieve a lot together. The ash-haired man takes the hand of the Baron's daughter and kisses it tenderly. Glock grins sinisterly and says that he will make the red-haired woman the Duke's wife. Aslan and his wife are picking apples from the trees. Aiden approaches the heroes and offers the gentleman to try their signature apple pie with cinnamon. The blonde man thanks for the treat and asks to address him by name. Rayla remembers the Duke's words that he would make her love him. The girl thinks that she still hasn't responded to these words because she's worried that the man is confused due to memory loss. Aslan turns to his beloved, offering her a piece of pie. Hearing this, the heroine sadly realizes that the Duke has definitely lost his memory, since he offers him cinnamon pie. The girl doesn't like strong smells, so she doesn't eat anything that contains cinnamon. The fair-haired man, knowing this, always removed such food when she was around. The fair-haired woman agrees to her husband's proposal. As Ryla reaches out to take the plate, Aslan lifts it up, saying that she doesn't like this kind of food. The man says that a few days ago, his wife enjoyed eating apple products, but there was no cinnamon in them. The Duke says she doesn't like strong smells because she has a very sensitive nose. Because all of this is true, the heroine asks Aslan if his memory has returned. However, the man says that he simply guessed, as Rayla looked at the piece of pie with great distrust. The blonde man covers the pie with his straw hat and guesses that he knew about the girl's sensitive nose before. The main character replies that this is indeed true, and she was always surprised at how good Aslan's memory was. The Duke is surprised to hear such praise directed at him. Ryla tells the man that once he heard the information, he never forgot it. The blonde agrees with this, but corrects the girl, saying that he never remembers what does not interest him. Aslan is once again convinced that the Duchess was a very important person to him, since he even knew about her taste preferences. The Duke says he never remembered the names and faces of people who were not connected with his business. The man once again confidently tells Rayla that he loved her, after which he clearly emphasizes that apparently this love was unrequited. Aslan decides to ask the fair-haired woman if it's true that she never felt anything for him during these 3 years. The heroine is embarrassed by this question, so she doesn't give any specific answers. Seeing his wife's hesitation, the fair-haired man sighs sadly, saying that he never imagined that he was such an unattractive person. The man apologizes for being so hasty without having learned the art of seduction, and therefore asks to give him one last chance. The fair-haired girl tries to calm her heart, which still cannot stop fluttering next to the Duke. Ryla pauses and suggests that Aslan return to this conversation when all his memories return to him. The girl lets go of her husband's hand and leaves him, leaving him alone. The next day, early in the morning, the main character goes down to the first floor of the house and sees that her entire family has long since become. Mrs. Violet asks everyone to wait a little while for breakfast, which is almost ready. Aiden asks his sister to convince their father to cook some meat today. The girl doesn't have time to answer because she is interrupted by someone's voice, asking her how she slept. The Duke says that the air is very cold in the morning and evening, so he hopes that the blonde did not freeze during the night. Rayla replies that she is fine, so Aslan exhales, saying that he chopped more wood, afraid that his wife would freeze. The blonde man says he remembered how he looked after the girl every time she was sick. To this, the heroine only silently sits down at the table, thinking that she should not pay attention to the Duke's words, otherwise she might suffer again when his memory returns. From the street you can hear the postman's cry, announcing a fresh newspaper. Ryla volunteers to pick up the newspaper, but the blonde is not happy with the clothes she is going to wear outside in the cold air. Aslan takes a cloak from the house and asks his wife not to take it off until she comes back into the house. The blonde blushes in embarrassment at such a sign of attention and says that she definitely won't freeze, since it's summer now. The Duke reminds Rayla that she needs to be careful, as she has only recently recovered. Hearing this, the main character asks the man how he knows about this. A brief memory flashes through Aslan's mind, and he replies that he heard somewhere about the girl's illness. The heroes are interrupted by Hans, who greets Lady Rayla and her guest. The blonde thanks the man for the newspaper, after which they exchange pleasantries. The Duke angrily tells the postman that he should have simply handed over the newspaper and not approached the customer in such an impudent manner. The fair-haired man menacingly says that he understands all the beauty of his wife, but this does not give him the right to get closer to her. Hans apologizes in fear for his tactlessness and then immediately leaves. Rayla yells at her husband in irritation, asking what he just did. The girl does not understand why the man needed to intimidate the postman. The blonde man replies that he couldn't just watch some stranger swarming around like a fly next to his beautiful wife. Aslan tells Rayla that he did not do anything special, as he understands that looking at her beauty is difficult not to lose his mind. The heroine is amazed that the Duke says such things without even blinking an eye. Looking at the current Aslan, the fair-haired girl notices that he was not like this before. When the heroes lived together, the fair-haired one never scared away the men who approached her, and the one who was constantly jealous was Rayla. The Duchess tells her husband that he has really changed a lot. The girl tells the Duke that he is not the Aslan she knew, although they are similar in some ways. The man asks his wife what exactly has changed in him, to which she replies that it is difficult to explain. The blonde man invites Rayla to sit down and talk in more detail about what he was like in the past. Aslan says that the doctor advised him to communicate more with the person who was closest to him in order to restore his memory. The heroine smiles, saying that the man was very caring, and she liked that he was always polite to others. Rayla tells the blonde man that he supported the poor and needy every year and never made it public. Aslan does not understand why his wife calls the fact that a businessman is involved in charity kindness. The fair-haired woman continues, saying that the Duke could not pass by when he saw a person or animal in need of help. The fair-haired man is surprised by these words because he does not like animals and has never pitied anyone. The man reflects that he most likely did this in order to look better in the eyes of his wife. Aslan realizes that he was afraid of undermining the girl's trust, which is why he did all these things. The Duke wonders if he pretended to be such a person for his wife's sake, then she could also fall in love with him. The blonde man tells Rayla that she was deceived because he tried to appear better in front of her than he really is. Aslan says that his views could not change over several years, so he is sure that he put a lot of effort into winning his wife's heart. The main character indignantly tells her husband not to say such reckless things, since he doesn't remember anything. The Duke assures the girl that he knows his true self, and he is one of those who deceive others in order to achieve his own. The man says that he deceived Rayla for these 3 years because he was afraid that she would leave him, but since he still lost her, he now promises to be sincere with her. Aslan tells his wife that he is now being truly honest with her and asks the girl if this truth upsets her. The heroine reflects on the fact that she has always considered the Duke to be a confident and kind person, so she tries to understand who the man standing in front of her is. After some time, Rayla tells her husband that even if he deceived her, she will always consider him good. The girl says that a person who does good in order to appear better in front of his loved one can be considered kind. The Duke smiles and asks his wife if she now admits that he loved her. The blonde jumps up from her seat and screams that she only said that because the man called himself a bad person. Before running away, Rayla tells her husband that all those 3 years, and now he remains good to her. The blonde man thinks that if the girl believes in this, it means he was incredibly happy loving her. Rosalina Faridot screams at her former lover that she will never become a duchess because Aslan abandoned her. The girl asks Glock how he plans to make her the Duke's wife. Ash-haired smirks, saying that he knows Duke Tordel's main secret. Hearing that, thanks to this, she will be able to become a duchess. The red-haired girl immediately asks what secret they are talking about. Glock calls the Baron's daughter to him and says that he knows the true face of Aslan's wife. The man tells Rosalind that the girl is not really Helena Laristin. The ash-haired man says that the blonde-haired woman's name is Rayla Violet, who is the daughter of poor people. Glock tells the red-haired girl that at the age of 10, the Duchess ended up in the Laristin prison and lived all this time as Helena. Rosalina asks in amazement if Duke Tordel knows about this. The man answers positively and says that this is precisely why this secret will play into their hands. Ash-haired is sure that Rayla Violet will definitely not be okay because of the secret that has come to light. Glock tells the red-haired woman that the Duke will definitely not allow his wife to suffer, as he cares for and loves her very much. Therefore, if Aslan's weakness is exploited, Rosalina Faridot can become his wife. The Baron's daughter cannot believe that she can really become the Duchess of Tordel. Glock kisses his beloved on the forehead and asks her to trust him. The man assures the girl that soon everything the Tordel family has will be theirs. The main character takes several books from the shelves and leaves the room with them. The Duke notices that his wife is about to leave the house, so he asks where she is going. The blonde shyly replies that she has something to do, so she needs to go out for a while. The blonde man asks his wife to go with her, but she immediately refuses him. The girl justifies her refusal by saying that the man has only recently recovered, so it would be better for him to rest at home. Ryla says she's just going to teach the kids from the church Polish. The Duke is surprised that the heroine knows this language, to which she replies that although she studied it before, she does not know it so well. Aslan notes that his wife is quite modest because she calls her level of language low, but she is capable of teaching Polish to children. The heroine says that there are simply very smart children in the church who remember everything well and quickly. The fair-haired man offers to help the girl with her studies, since he knows the language well. Ryla realizes that Aslan might be bored at home, so she agrees to his offer, but asks him to be careful that no one reveals his identity. The fair-haired woman feels uneasy because no matter how shabby the Duke's clothes are, it will still be obvious that he is a nobleman. The main character is greeted by a passerby who asks if she is going to teach children. The woman tells the girl that Jody left as soon as the sun rose, although before she ran away, immediately after hearing words about studying. A passerby asks Rayla who the young man is standing next to her, to which the blonde replies that he is visiting their house. The woman smiles, saying that the characters look great together. The heroine brushes off her friend's words, convincing her that he is just a guest and nothing more. Ryla whispers to the man to hurry to the church to avoid awkward questions. The blonde looks at the sun, amazed at such hot weather. Aslan invites his wife to sit down for a while to rest. The blonde man takes off his straw hat and begins to fan his wife with it. The man smiles, reminding the girl of his words that he will be useful to her. Rayla still can't stop being surprised by the changes in the Duke's behavior. The fair-haired girl enters the church, where she is joyfully greeted from the doorway by the children living there. The children's attention is drawn to an unfamiliar man standing behind their teacher. The girl informs her students that he is her guest and asks their permission for him to attend the lesson with them. The children look at each other and, without thinking, agree. Seeing how well Ryla conveys the material, Aslan cannot understand why she underestimates herself so much. The man guesses that being a duchess, the girl is used to putting herself down. Near the fair-haired girl, the Duke's memory gradually began to return. Now the fair-haired man knows that before the wedding, he had dreams in which a girl he saw for the first time appeared. However, after the man met her in reality, he realized that these were memories from his other life. Now, Aslan understands why his head was so confused when he remembered something. Although the blonde man's head is still a complete mess, he knows for sure that the one he loved, both in his past and current life, was Rayla Violet. A little girl approaches the Duke and tugs at his sleeve, attracting his attention. The little girl asks the man what kind of relationship he has with her teacher. Aslan says that he will tell the girl about this only if she keeps it a secret. The blond man leans towards the child and whispers in his ear that they are married. Hearing this, a joyful smile blossoms on the little girl's face. Mr. Mache slams his fist on the table, shouting in frustration that he should have dealt with Duke Tordel once and for all. The man is unhappy that his people couldn't handle such a simple job. Mr. Mache is sure that Aslan will begin to suspect his competitors of what happened, but he does not understand why he has not done anything yet. Suddenly, someone starts knocking persistently on the man's office door. Ash-haired comes inside, saying that he has a profitable offer for Mache. The gentleman shouts at the man who entered, asking how he got into his office. Instead of answering, Glock asks the man if he was the one who ordered the murder of Aslan Tordel. Makeda says hesitantly that he doesn't understand what the ash-haired man is talking about. The Count's son smirks, saying that the Lord should have made sure that his men would not wag their tongues. In the tavern, Glock overheard two men talking about Macheda's mission to assassinate Duke Tordel. The gentleman did not think that he could be set up like this, since most officials support him. The man wanted to get rid of Aslan, because that would put the Western branch in his hands. Meche asks the ash-haired man if he has come to avenge the Duke. Hearing this, Glock bursts out laughing. The Count's son puts his hand on the gentleman's shoulder and reminds him of his words about help. Ash-haired says he knows a way to kill Aslan and make the Western branch go to the mosque. The gentleman agrees to Glock's proposal, and the men shake hands. Rosalina is at a loss as to whether to agree to her ex-lover's plan or not. The girl understands that if she does this, Aslan will be killed, and if the blonde finds out that she is involved in this plan, she will be executed immediately. Taking out paper and a fountain pen, the Baron's daughter thinks that she is not going to expose herself because of the Glock. Ryla thanks everyone for the lesson and reminds them that they will meet again next week. The children immediately run up to the blonde, inviting her to go for a walk together. The heroine does not know what to answer her students, since she is not officially their teacher who has permission to accompany them. A pastor comes into the class and asks if everything is okay. Ryla tells the man that the children want to go for a walk with her, to which he happily gives permission. The pastor tells the girl that children usually run around somewhere on their own, so it would be even better if she went with them. The heroine comes to the seacoast with her students. Children ask the teacher for permission to play in the water. However, Rayla asks to postpone this entertainment for another time, since they do not have a change of clothes. Then the boys decide not to be sad, but to go play hide and seek, while the girls sit down to build sand castles. The fair-haired girl looks around in search of Aslan and notices that he is having fun with the children near the shore. Seeing this beautiful picture, Rayla remarks that the Duke will be a wonderful father. The girl immediately catches herself on the sad thought that she will never be able to see this in person. During all 3 years of marriage, the heroes never slept together. Although the couple officially shared one bed and bedding, Aslan never touched Rayla. Moreover, the man left every time and slept on the sofa. Tired of playing with the children, the fair-haired girl sits down on the blanket, thinking that tomorrow she definitely won't be able to get out of bed. The Duke wipes his sweat-dampened forehead, asking his wife if they have any water with them. The girl hands her husband a bottle, which he drinks almost completely. At this moment, a picture appears in the heroine's memory, where she looks at the sleeping Duke. Ryla doesn't understand what this memory is, because she is sure that she never slept with Aslan. The blonde man sits down next to his wife and takes her hand. The girl turns her head towards her husband and feels her heart begin to beat at a furious speed. Feeling the same, Aslan closes the distance between them. The heroes are interrupted by the cry of one of the children, who calls the teacher to play with them. The blonde suddenly gets up from her seat, shouting to the students that she will be there soon. The blonde man wants to stop the girl, but immediately stops without saying anything. Rayla can't believe she felt such a strong desire at such an inopportune moment. The heroine does not understand why Aslan behaves this way, but she is sure that he will regret it as soon as all his memories return to him. The blonde decides to stay away from the man to prevent him from making a mistake. The next day, Rayla begins to be tormented by devilish whispers. The dark side of the girl tells herself to accept the fact that Aslan is drawn to her just as she is drawn to him. Because of constant thoughts about this, the main character ran away from home under the pretext of wanting to borrow a book from a priest. However, even now she cannot stop thinking about Aslan, showing romantic interest in her. The blonde woman reflects on the fact that a man just needs to meet some girl. The heroine wanders into the crowd and notices that there are a lot of people in the village today. A girl with expressive bright green eyes and a dress of the same color calls out to Rayla. The blonde greets Lady Emily hesitantly, not understanding why she spoke to her, since they had never been close. The green-eyed girl shyly asks to spare her a minute to ask her something. Rayla guesses what they might be talking about now, since the girl had previously told her that she was still single and looking for a husband. Emily asks her friend what kind of relationship she has with the man with blonde hair. The girl excitedly says that she saw them together a couple of days ago. Rayla asks the lady if he is asking about Aslan, to which she admiringly says that he has an amazing name. The main character decides to change the subject of the conversation, so she talks about her observation that the atmosphere in the ancient world has changed. The green-eyed girl understands what the blonde-haired girl is talking about and explains to her that it's all because of the festival that starts tomorrow. Emily says that the event will be held in Erez for 3 days, and their village is very close to the city, so everyone is excited. The girl again wants to start a conversation about Aslan, but Rayla immediately interrupts her, saying that it's time for her to go. Mrs. Violet suggests that the family take a break from work and go to the festival. The woman's husband agrees with her, saying that they should spend time together before more work comes into play. Aiden tells his sister that it will be a wonderful day, to which the girl replies that she is looking forward to it, as it will be her first festival. The young man is very surprised by this, since he was sure that since Rayla lived in the center of the country, she had already become tired of these events. The blonde recalls how she once attended a social party for the aristocracy, which certainly did not look like a festival. Aiden asks the Duke if he has ever been to the festival, to which he replies that he has never been to it either. Then the young man says that the three of them need to try everything, since this is their first experience. The blonde man hesitantly asks if Aiden is talking about the three of them, meaning himself, Rayla, and him. Violet's family is silent for a few seconds, as they did not expect to hear such a question. Mrs. Violet asks the Duke if he would like to go with them. Aslan awkwardly says that since it was about family, he thought that he should not accompany them. Mr. Violet says that's why they need to go together, because they live under the same roof, which means they are a family. The blonde man once again checks with Violet's family to see if he can really go with them. Rayla encourages the Duke by telling him that the more people there are, the merrier. Aslan repeats the word family to himself and does not understand how it can carry so much warmth. Duke Tordel meets with the blue-haired man to hear a report on the affairs in the capital. The knight says that everything is relatively okay in the center, and there are no serious problems. After this, the man takes out an envelope with a letter and says that the sender is Rosalina Faridot. Aslan crumples the envelope in his hand, calling the girl's actions truly shameless. The man realizes that Rosalina doesn't yet know that her lie has been exposed, which is why she so shamelessly sent him this letter. The blonde man throws the crumpled paper on the ground and tells the knight that he needs to go to the center as soon as possible. The blue-haired man says that there is no need for this, but the Duke insists that he must deal with everything himself. Aslan is determined not to let the red-haired girl go unpunished, because she dared to take Rayla's place. The next day, before going to the festival, Mrs. Violet puts her daughter's makeup on. The blonde looks at herself in the mirror and tells her mother that she has never seen anything more beautiful in her life. The heroine's father and brother praise Mrs. Violet's efforts, saying that their Rayla is truly the most beautiful in the world. The girl blushes and thanks everyone for such flattering words. Aslan agrees with everyone and says that his wife is simply incredibly beautiful. At the festival, the main character's mother offers to buy her daughter a pendant. However, she immediately refuses, as she does not want to bother her family with unnecessary expenses. Rayla's gaze falls on a silver bracelet with a flower in the middle, but the fair-haired girl refuses him for the same reason. While Violet's family watches a street performer, the heroine looks around in search of the blonde man. Finally seeing him, the girl approaches Aslan, asking what he is doing near the stalls. In the man's hand, Rayla notices the same bracelet with a flower in the middle. The blonde notices other bags on the Duke and asks him if he bought anything other than the jewelry, even the one she barely glanced at. Aslan is surprised at himself because he just bought all these things without thinking. The blonde man grips the handles of the bags tightly, wondering if he did everything right like before, or if Rayla will feel obligated because of this. The girl's parents approach the couple and suggest that they return home since they need to return to work tomorrow. However, the man suggests that the heroes walk a little longer since the most interesting part of the festival promises to be in the evening. Aiden also wants to stay, but his parents silently take him by the arms, leading him home. Aslan invites his wife to enjoy the festival while they have time. The heroes come to the central square, where a large fire is burning, and couples are dancing merrily around it. The blonde-haired man extends his hand to Rayla, inviting them to join the others as well. The blonde takes the man's hand, and they walk closer to the other couples. Aslan asks the heroine to dance as her heart tells her, and not to follow the rules of the ball. Noticing that the girl stumbles during the dance, the blonde man lifts her up in support. This action amuses Rayla, causing a genuine happy smile to appear on her face. Lady Faridot is very worried that Duke Tordel has still not responded to her letter. Glock enters Amber's house and tells the red-haired girl that all preparations are complete. The man leans towards the girl, asking her opinion on whether the Duke has regained his memory or not. Rosalina replies that if Aslan had remembered everything completely, he would have come to the center with Helena a long time ago. Glock says thoughtfully that there might be problems if things continue like this. Ash-haired says that only if the Duke remembers everything and begins to cherish his wife again, will they be able to put their plan into action. A shudder ran through the red-haired girl's body when she heard that the man wanted to speed up the process of restoring Aslan's memory. The main character sits down, feeling the heaviness in her legs after long dancing. Rayla smiles at the thought that this day was truly beautiful. A man passing by the girl accidentally drops his handkerchief. The fair-haired woman calls out to the stranger and returns the scarf to him. The man thanks the heroine and asks her what family she comes from. The stranger says that he is asking this only because he wants to thank him for his help. Rayla replies that she lives in the city of Ellawood and her family is not influential enough to be called noble. Hearing this, the man apologizes, saying that he assumed that the girl had come on vacation from another city. The heroine doesn't have time to say anything more because her husband's back appears in front of her. The Duke asks the stranger what is going on here, to which he replies that he simply wanted to thank the blonde for picking up his scarf. Aslan threateningly says that the man has already managed to do what he wanted, so if he has nothing more to say, then he can go. As the stranger leaves, Rayla thanks the blonde man for his help. The Duke turns to his beloved, asking if picking up scarves is her hobby. Hearing this, the heroine shudders and asks Aslan again what he just said. The blonde man thinks that his wife is upset by his jealousy, so he replies that he didn't say anything like that. Rayla doesn't understand why the man would deny it, so she asks him directly if his memories are returning. The main character explains to the Duke that he just remembered how their first meeting took place. Aslan thinks that the fair-haired girl wants his memories to return to him quickly, and he goes to the center. That's why the blonde guy says the words just came out of his mouth by accident. Ryla asks the Duke if he really doesn't remember anything, to which he assures her that he wouldn't lie. However, the girl still doubts this, because the man remembered how she picked up the handkerchief he dropped. The heroine wonders why Aslan is lying to her, and comes to the conclusion that his memory has returned, and now he is ashamed of the fact that he has always denied his love for Rosalina. The fair-haired woman thinks that if the Duke remembers everything, he will be able to return to Lady Faridot, but now he is simply afraid of offending her, so he does not leave. Ryla hopes that the man's memory has not yet fully returned, so they will be able to be together for a little while longer. Seeing the thoughtful expression on his wife's face, Aslan thinks that he needs to be extremely careful not to get caught in the future. At the same time, the fair-haired girl mentally apologizes to Aslan for the fact that for some time she will pretend that she knows nothing about his lie. Rayla suggests that they go back as the family might be worried about them. The main character takes a step and accidentally stumbles. The Duke puts his arm around the girl, asking worriedly if she is hurt. Aslan asks his wife to sit down so that he can make sure that everything is really okay with her. The man takes off Ryla's shoes and sees that underneath there are a huge number of abrasions. The Duke says that they urgently need to find a doctor, but the fair-haired girl refuses this because the wounds can be treated at home. Passing girls begin to discuss the heroes, wondering whether the man is a servant or wants to propose to his beloved. Rayla closes her eyes, trying not to look at the passers-by, in whose eyes they look very awkward. The blonde removes her leg from Aslan's hands, saying that she will take care of the wound herself at home. When the girl asks the blonde man to give her the shoes, he silently takes them in his hands. The Duke says that the shoes may rub even more, so he promises the girl to carry them safely. Around the corner, the same man who dropped the handkerchief was watching what was happening all this time. Having made sure that the blonde man is not a danger to the lady, the gentleman with the cane decides to leave. Suddenly, the man hears strange sounds on the other side and begins to regret not taking his sword with him because of the festival. The next moment, a stranger grabs the aristocrat by the hand. Rayla looks out the carriage window and notices that the road they are traveling on does not lead to her house. The girl asks Aslan where they are going, to which he replies that she still needs to see a doctor. In spite of all the persuasion, the fair-haired Duke insists that first aid must be provided correctly. The man takes his wife in his arms again, not allowing her to step onto the ground with her own feet. Aslan asks the girl to refrain from kicking, otherwise they both might fall. The heroes enter a mansion where everything shows the status and greatness of the owner. When the couple enters the elevator, Rayla asks where they are, but in response, she only receives the words that she will definitely get help here. The blonde man knocks on the door, and a man in glasses, who looks like he just woke up, opens it for him. The Duke says Oscar Langston told him that Lieutenant Gus Chester lives here and that he can come here at any time. Aslan asks the man with glasses if he knows that he has lost his memory. The lieutenant says that he is aware of this and is the one the blonde man is looking for. Entering the room, Aslan asks to immediately call a doctor for his wife. Rayla thinks that a man who doesn't even remember the name of his lieutenant can't give orders so naturally. The fair-haired girl is not happy with the thought that the Duke has already regained his memory, and he is simply hiding it. The doctor treats the girl's wounds and asks her to avoid contact with water if possible, and to apply ointment every morning. The main character apologizes to her husband for constantly bothering him over trifles. The blonde man asks Rayla why she doesn't take care of herself at all. Aslan asks his wife not to apologize for the pain she feels. The heroes are interrupted by Gus, who enters and asks the blonde how she feels. The heroine thanks for the concern and says that everything is fine with her now. The lieutenant invites the couple to stay with him for the night and set off on their journey tomorrow. as soon as it begins to get light. Rayla is not happy with this proposal, as she is worried that her family will worry. The fair-haired man asks to prepare the carriage, as they must return today. The Duke approaches Gus and asks him if he has received any messages from the center. The man answers positively, saying that he had just recently given the latter to Oscar. Aslan orders not to delay and to go straight to Ellawood if there is something urgent. The blonde man says not to waste time thinking about whether the message is worth his consideration, since it is already his business, after which the Duke returns to his wife, offering to go downstairs. Seeing the Duke acting exactly the same as before, Gus can't believe that he has actually lost his memory. After some time, the heroes return to Violet's family home. The couple are approached by Ryla's parents, who had been waiting outside the entire time because they were worried that something had happened. Aiden tells his sister that their mother was about to send him to the pastor for a carriage. The main character decides not to tell her family about the abrasions, so she justifies her late arrival by saying that she lost track of time at the festival. However, the Duke decides to tell his wife's parents the truth, that the girl injured her leg, so they had to go to the doctor. While Rayla is embarrassedly telling about what happened, Aslan is smiling sweetly behind her, looking at her. Glock appears in front of the gentleman with a cane, saying that he can help him with the blonde-haired girl if he is interested in her. The men sit down, and the aristocrat tells his new acquaintance that next to this girl he felt that it was love at first sight. However, the gentleman does not want to come between the fair-haired woman and her lover, so he tells the stranger that his help will be useless. Ash-haired says he has some other information about this couple. Glock leans over to the aristocrat and informs him that these people don't really like each other. The Count's son says that the fair-haired man lost his memory in the accident, so when he remembers everything, he will return to his beloved. Glock sighs, saying that he feels sorry for the lady, because she doesn't even suspect that her ex-husband never loved her. Ash-haired says that the man came to his ex-wife only to bring back memories. The aristocrat is greatly outraged by these words. Glock agrees with the gentleman's reaction, as he also thinks that the ex-husband is simply using the girl for his own selfish purposes. The man asks the ash-haired man if the blonde-haired man really doesn't remember anything, since the memories could have already returned. The Count's son says that this is easy to find out and tells the gentleman the way to check, after which the ash-haired man gets up from his seat and, stretching, wishes his new acquaintance good luck. The aristocrat asks the man why he is helping him, since they have met for the first time. To this, Glock asks the gentleman not to feel obligated, as he simply wants to help him. However, in response, the ash-haired man asks the man to write to him about how everything goes. The Count's son puts his feet on the desk and says that Rosalina will soon become a duchess. The red-haired girl smiles tensely and says that she is very glad that everything is going according to plan. Lady Faridot is very worried that Aslan has not yet responded to her letter, as he may misunderstand everything in the future. Glock suggests that the girl look at a wedding dress or choose wedding rings in advance. The redhead replies that it is too early for that, since they are not finished yet. Rosalina bites her lip, trying to think of a way she can help Aslan without Glock finding out. The Baron's daughter tells her former lover that she would like to go to Ellawood to check everything out for herself. The girl decides that since the Duke does not answer her letters, it would be better if she tells him about Glock's plan in person. The ash-haired man rises from his seat and firmly grabs the red-haired woman's hand, pulling her towards him. The man reminds Rosalind that if she does something wrong, he can reveal her secret at any moment. Glock asks the girl not to fill her head with all sorts of nonsense and just do as she is told. The red-haired girl's body begins to shake violently, as she now doesn't know what to do. After 3 days, the wounds on Ryla's legs had healed. The girl was really looking forward to this moment, since her parents did not allow her to leave the house, even for safety reasons. The fair-haired girl did not object to the family because she was embarrassed to see Aslan after the festival. While changing, the main character reflects on how she used to be able to lie in bed for weeks, but now she can do it with difficulty. Due to the numerous questions from locals about Aslan, the girl sometimes wonders whether she should go out into the city or not. Looking down on Ellawood from above, Rayla thinks that here, she and the Duke have become much closer than they once were at the estate. All these 3 years, the fair-haired girl considered the man a serious person, but it turned out that inside, he was just like a restless child. The main character came to the village hoping to forget about Aslan, but ended up loving him even more. The girl is distracted from these thoughts by the voice of the blonde man calling her by name. Ryla is in no hurry to turn to her husband, trying to gather her courage to let him go. When the Duke compares him to his wife, she is the first to start the conversation, telling him that there was a similar hill next to her previous house. The blonde admits that she is very glad that she was able to find a similar place. The girl continues, saying that her favorite place in the Tordell mansion was the garden, in which the man planted many different flowers for her. The blonde man notes that since he did this for his wife, it means they were on good terms. However, Rayla disagrees with Aslan, saying that at one time she thought he liked her, but later the man became cold and distant. The main character asks if the Duke has any questions about how he was before. The fair-haired girl offers to tell Aslan everything she remembers so that he will remember everything sooner. The blonde man asks if the girl wants his memory back, and he leaves her. In her heart, the heroine would very much like the man to stay in Ellawood, but she understands that he needs to leave. Rayla answers the Duke's question that this is so, because he is a busy man and is definitely expected in the capital. Aslan gloomily says that since his wife intends to throw him out, then he will do so. The blonde wants to say that she didn't say that, but falls silent when the Duke closes the distance between them. The blonde man says he knows he can definitely help him. Aslan approaches the girl's flushed face and gently touches her lips, kissing her. The main character feels that she is having trouble breathing, so she taps on the Duke's chest to make him stop. When it finally happens, Rayla touches her lips, trying to understand what just happened. Aslan says that he heard that memories can be returned if you replay events from the past. The blonde begins to doubt that the man's memory has returned, because then he would know that they never kissed. Rayla claims that the Duke actually remembers everything, including that their marriage was arranged, and that they never had any physical intimacy. The fair-haired man says that he will no longer deny that he remembers nothing, but admits that his memories are not yet complete. Aslan still can't understand why they didn't do anything like that, which is absolutely normal for a couple. The man tells the girl that he came here to share something with her, but now he thinks it was wrong. The Duke takes out a box with a ring and says that his assistant gave it to him. Rayla asks the blonde man why he needed her engagement ring. Holding the box forward, Aslan tells his wife that he wants their marriage to be real. The blonde cannot accept that a man like the Duke likes her. The girl is still convinced that the man is more suited to the real main character. Rayla confesses to Aslan that she is afraid because she feels that he will change his mind after his memories return. The blonde suggests postponing the conversation until the blonde's memory has fully returned. The heroine still doubts the Duke's words about his love for her, since before the loss of his memories, he did not show his feelings in any way. The girl claims that when Aslan's memories return, his feelings may change, but the man tries to convince her otherwise. The blonde man confidently tells Rayla that even if he loses his memory again, he will return to her. Glock asks Mr. McKetty if he checked the information he told him earlier. The man tells the ash-haired man that his people have questioned everyone who might have known the real Helena Laristine. One lady who was close to the girl in childhood provided them with information that the current Helena is radically different from her younger self. According to the lady, the fair-haired woman was a completely different person, starting with her facial features and hair color and ending with her character. However, this information did not satisfy the gentleman, since they all change as they grow older. The servant also said that they decided to question the employees who worked in the Larestein mansion. But as soon as they heard the girl's name, they refused to talk to them, reacting extremely negatively. However, one lady told the servant Meche that the current Duchess of Tordel was not the lady they were supposed to serve. The businessman wonders what these words mean. To this, the servant recalls the rumors that were circulating at the time, which suggested that Count Larestein was kidnapping girls. The man says that all the girls were the same age and similar in appearance to the Count's daughter, Helena. The lady also said that at first she was happy to serve the mistress, but then different ladies began to constantly appear in her place. Hearing this, Machete joyfully shouts that he has finally discovered Aslan Tordel's weakness. The gentleman suggests that Glock call that noble lady and the maid as witnesses. The ash-haired man smirks and says that if you add his words to this, then the Duchy of Tordel will simply have no choice. Suddenly, Machete realizes that he doesn't know where Glock got this information from. Ash-haired says that it is not so important because he provided the gentleman with this information absolutely free of charge. The man asks the businessman not to worry, as he is not going to betray him. Glock says that all they can do is wait until Aslan's memory fully returns. Ash-haired informs that they will proceed to the next stage as soon as they are sure that the Duke has remembered everything. After that conversation on the hill, the fair-haired man began to often ask his wife about his past in order to regain his lost memories. Aslan, surprised, asks the girl if he really used to like solving crosswords. The main character replies that the man did this in his free time, and she sometimes joined him. The blonde says that she feels a sense of satisfaction when she manages to solve difficult problems. During conversations, the heroes most often talk about Ryla and not about Aslan. But the girl does not think this is something bad, since sometimes it is useful to look back at yourself from the past. The fair-haired man notes that the heroine really does speak Polish well. Ryla says that the Duke knew this before, and also reveals that she sometimes translated books from Polish to earn money. At this point, Aslan abruptly interrupts the girl's story, as he cannot believe that she worked while being married to him. The blonde man asks his wife, amazed if he has not given her enough money in the past. The blonde embarrassedly says that she just wanted to buy the Duke a gift with the money she earned. Aslan tells his wife that she apparently speaks the language so well that the publishing house offered her cooperation. Ryla says she was just very lucky and was only given the job because they could pay her less than professional translators. The man disagrees that it was just luck, because if the heroine had not shown her skills and taken the initiative, she would not have had a chance. The blonde man convinces the girl that since publishers continued to contact her, it means that she did an excellent job. These words warm the main character's soul, and now it seems to her that the problems of the past were not so insoluble. Rayla turns her head towards the Duke and notices that he is sitting with his head down, dejected. The man says he is angry with himself for never having said anything like that to his wife before. The fair-haired girl shudders and already wants to say that everything is fine. But Aslan asks not to justify his actions and words. The heroine only smiles awkwardly at this, noting that the blonde man is being overly self-critical of himself today. Rayla decides to change the subject and tells the Duke the news from the village. Mrs. Violet enters the room of the fair-haired woman, telling her that Lady Garnet is looking for her. The heroine is surprised by this, because although Lady Garnet is well acquainted with her mother, she has never even met her. Ryla goes down to the guest, and she tells her that she came to give the girl something. The lady hands the heroine an envelope containing an invitation from Viscount Lansfield. The pink-haired girl smiles sweetly and asks Ryla to read the letter and make a decision. Ryla hesitantly asks her guest if she is sure that the letter is intended for her. Lady Garnet says she has been asked to deliver an invitation to a beautiful girl with long brown hair who lives in Ellawood. The heroine does not understand why the choice fell on her. because in their village there are other girls with a similar hair color. Mrs. Violet hugs her daughter and addresses her friend as Leah. The woman asks the guest why such a high-ranking person invited a girl he had never seen before. Leah replies that the Viscount wants to thank Rayla for her help during the festival. The heroine says that she doesn't remember doing anything so significant, but almost immediately stops. The girl smiles and remembers the man whose handkerchief she picked up. Rayla tells the guest that she understands who they are talking about. The next moment, the sound of a broken pencil is heard in the room, and everyone turns their surprised glances to the blonde man. Aslan turns to the girls and, smiling tensely, apologizes for interrupting their conversation. Mrs. Violet continues by saying that she finds the Viscount's offer strange, even if it is a simple gesture of gratitude. The pink-haired girl happily assumes that the man has fallen in love with Lady Rayla, since if he had simply wanted to thank her, he would have sent a servant with money. Mrs. Violet indignantly says that such a conclusion is nonsense, since the Viscount and her daughter only met once. A woman thinks it is wrong to invite a girl whom a man doesn't really know to his home. Duke Tordel reflects thoughtfully on the fact that when a nobleman starts a relationship with a commoner, people do not consider it something serious. Aslan knows that the higher a person's position, the more condemnation from others follows towards his other half. The fair-haired man doesn't care about his reputation and other people's, but he won't allow his wife to be taken lightly. Mrs. Violet asks her daughter if she intends to accept the Viscount's invitation. Aslan turns his intense gaze to the blonde, waiting for her answer. Rayla tells Lady Garnet that she is declining the invitation because the Viscount invited her because he was interested. Hearing this, a joyful smile appears on the Duke's face. Leia asks the fair-haired girl to think again and still go to Viscount Lansfield. The pink-haired girl says that most of the locals work for the man, so they won't be happy if there is a misunderstanding between Rayla and the Viscount. The main character realizes that if she refuses the invitation, her family may suffer. The girl's mother interrupts these thoughts, saying that she doesn't need to agree for their sake. Mrs. Violet asks her daughter not to worry about them, because she is free to do what she wants. The heroine reflects that if Viscount Lansfield is really such a good man as he is described, then he will not take revenge on her for her refusal. However, the fair-haired girl understands that if she still does not agree, then Lady Garnet will definitely spread this information throughout the village. Rayla is sure that the Viscount really invited her only to thank her for her help during the festival. The girl accepts the invitation, explaining that it would be impolite to refuse. The fair-haired girl asks her mother not to worry, assuring her that nothing bad will happen. Duke Tordel approaches his wife and says that he will go to the Viscount with her so that she will be absolutely safe. 2 days later, the heroes set off for the estate of Viscount Lansfield. Aslan thoughtfully tells his wife that the Lansfield estate and Violet's family home turned out to be close to each other. Rayla is surprised by this and says that she and the Viscount have never crossed paths before. The Viscount meets his guests right at the carriage. The Duke greets the aristocrat with a cold smile, saying that he is happy to meet him again. Men shake hands when introducing themselves to each other. The Viscount asks the heroes to follow him into the dining room, where the table has already been set. Lansfield introduces the guests to his family, who are already seated at the table. The woman asks to be called Lady Lansfield, and the blonde girl introduces herself as Caroline Harvey, and turns out to be a relative of the Viscount. The blonde turns out to be the man's younger sister and asks to be called Diana. The main character smiles awkwardly at Lansfield's relatives. Rayla notices the girls' looks as they look at her askance. After the meal, the Viscount invites Aslan to go to another place for a private conversation. The aristocrat invites the fair-haired man to go into the smoking room, but receives a sharp refusal under the pretext that the Duke cannot stand the smell of cigarettes. Lansfield then asks the man if he plays pool. The blonde man asks his wife if she would mind if he steps away for a while. Having received permission, Aslan tells the aristocrat that he likes to play billiards in his free time. As the men leave the dining room, the Duke asks Lansfield what he wanted to talk about. To the Viscount's surprised look, the fair-haired man replies that it was obvious that he wanted to talk to him face to face. Lansfield realizes that his intentions have been discovered, so he tells the man that he wanted to ask him one question. The aristocrat asks the Duke if he really loves Lady Rayla so much. This question takes Aslan by surprise, which is why he cannot hide the surprise on his face. The Viscount explains that during the meal, he watched the couple the whole time and noticed that the blonde man never took his eyes off Rayla. The Duke is amazed and says that he had not noticed anything like that about himself. The Viscount admits that the fair-haired girl interested him, but when he saw how Aslan treated her, he decided to give up his feelings. Lansfield asks the blonde man again if he really loves the main character. Aslan confidently declares that Rayla is a person who is more precious to him than his own life. Having received the answer, Lansfield suggests playing billiards as planned. The Viscount recalls the words of the stranger from the square that the fair-haired man loved another girl before losing his memory. But now a drop of doubt has settled in his soul. However, the man pushes these thoughts away, thinking that he is still not completely convinced of the stranger's words. The aristocrat thinks that now his sister and Lady Harvey must fulfill their part of the plan. Lady Lansfield rises from the table, saying that she is a little tired, so she will leave the young ladies so that they can chat in peace. Caroline clears her throat and tells Diana that she had a very different picture of the girl who helped her brother. The fair-haired girl calmly replies that she completely agrees with the words of her distant relative. The main character notices that the girls speak broken Polish. Rayla realizes that the Viscount's relatives decided to mock her in this way. Smiling, Diana tells the blonde that Lady Rayla has no education, so she doesn't understand them at all now. The main character notes that the girl's language abilities are approximately at the level of the children she teaches. The fair-haired girl decides to ignore the lady's ridiculous provocations. Although Rayla doesn't understand why the girls have become so hostile towards her so suddenly, she is already used to this kind of bullying. The Viscount's relatives notice that the fair-haired girl does not react to their provocations. Diana reminds her sister of Patrashu's words that a person's value is determined from the moment of his birth. The blonde praises the girl with admiration, since she is familiar with the works of Patrashu. The next moment, the main character shudders when she hears Lady Diana mention that her parents work in the orchard. The girl laughs at this, noting that since those people were born insignificant, they will never come close to their greatness. Rayla clenches her fists in anger, as the lady has no right to speak about her family like that. Caroline turns to the heroine, asking why her face has become gloomy. The blonde, smiling, assumes that the brown-haired girl was only able to pick out her name from their conversation. Diana agrees with this, saying that since there was no answer, they will have to repeat it again. The Viscount's younger sister asks the guest why he doesn't answer them. Rayla apologizes for her silence, saying that she took a moment to think about what to say. The blonde says that it is impolite to mention other people's mistakes, but there are some things she cannot ignore. The heroine reminds the girls that the author of the book they were talking about was not Patrashu, but Patnageshu. Rayla tells the girls that the author's words must be understood in their context, but decides not to go into details. Diana yells at the girl, indignant that she has simply ignored them all this time. The Viscount praises Aslan for his excellent understanding of global economics. The man asks the fair-haired man if he works in trade, to which the Duke replies with a grin that he is almost right. In response, Lansfield smiles and says that he also has a small business. Aslan thinks that they have been talking longer than he expected, so he suggests that the Viscount return to the refectory. Returning, the Duke sees Lansfield's relatives actively discussing something, while Rayla sits apart from them. The blonde man approaches his wife and putting his hand to her forehead, says that she has a slight fever. The heroine is surprised by the man's words, since the words about temperature are a signal that only the two of them know about. Whenever Helena Laristin was ignored at social events, Aslan always took her away under this pretext. Ryla wants to ask the man if he's started remembering something, or if it's just a coincidence, but she can't because there are too many extra ears around. The blonde girl tells the fair-haired guy that she is fine, but further communication may be difficult for her. The heroes thank the Viscount for the invitation and ask him to prepare a carriage for them. As the couple leaves, Lancefield asks his sisters if they were able to carry out their part of the plan. Diana admits that she unconsciously got angry halfway through, but everything happened just as the Viscount said. The fair-haired woman says that Aslan did tell Lady Rayla that she had a slight fever. Lancefield is horrified to hear this, as what the stranger said turned out to be true. That day, Glock told the aristocrat that every time a lady gets into trouble at a social event, the blonde man tells her that she has a slight fever. Lancefield happily thinks that all he has left to do is tell the silver-haired man that Aslan has regained his memories. However, the man stops short, remembering that the stranger had made it clear that Mr. Tordell did not love his wife. The aristocrat understands that such feelings as the blonde expressed towards Rayla cannot be played out. Lancefield wonders if the silver-haired man might have made a mistake or just wanted to use him. The man covers his face with his hand, realizing that he is completely confused, since the love of the heroes for each other is obvious. Seeing the doubt on her brother's face, Diana excitedly asks him if everything is okay, to which he thanks his relatives for their help. The man walks into his office and sits down at his desk to write to the stranger about the results of the inspection. Glock Larestin looks happily at the letter from Viscount Lancefield. Ash-haired informs Rosalina that their plan is nearing completion. The red-haired girl thinks excitedly about the fact that all this time she didn't have the opportunity to tell Aslan about Glock's plan. The Count's son reminds the girl that she must now write a letter to Aslan. Rayla Violet looks out the window thoughtfully, wondering if she was wrong or not. The girl wonders if she might have accidentally let slip their secret signal. The blonde decides that there is no longer any point in denying that the man has regained his memory, so she asks him directly about it. Hearing the girl's question, the blonde man flinches in surprise. Seeing this reaction, Rayla asks the Duke if he lied to her from the beginning. The main character does not understand why the man pretended to have lost his memory, so she thinks that it amused him. Lady Violet grimly asks the blonde man if he thought it was funny how she tried to help him remember everything. Aslan convinces the girl that he did not want to deceive her. The fair-haired man admits that he did indeed lose his memory, but during the time he spent with his wife, his memories returned. The Duke says he simply didn't have the opportunity to talk about it. The blonde says, upset, that if the man had admitted that his memories had returned when they talked about it, she wouldn't have felt so stupid. The blonde man doesn't understand what he should say to justify himself and where he should start. The Duke hid something all his life, because speaking openly is dangerous, and sincerity is weakness. The man is sure that if someone finds out about your weakness, it could turn into a serious threat for the person. Politics, economics, history, and philosophy have taught Aslan to watch every word he says, so he cannot speak frankly with people. That is why the fair-haired man was unable to fulfill Rayla's request and answer her honestly. The girl gloomily notes that the Duke doesn't even try to explain. The heroine tells Aslan that broken trust is like a broken vase, which can be glued back together, but the marks will still remain. Rayla warns the blonde man that the vase could break again at any moment. When the heroes arrive at Violet's family home, Aslan extends his hand to his wife to help her out of the carriage. However, the girl descends the steps on her own, silently rejecting the Duke's help. At the house, the main character is met by her parents, who immediately ask how their meeting with Viscount Lancefield went. The blonde apologizes and says that she wants to rest alone for a while. Mr. and Mrs. Violet look at their daughter with concern, hoping that nothing serious has happened to her. The tired heroine falls onto the bed and tries to clear all the thoughts that are troubling her from her head. Mrs. Violet asks her son-in-law if Viscount Lansfield has offended her daughter. Aslan replies that this is not true at all, which leaves Rayla's parents with even more questions. The conversation is interrupted by a knock on the door, and the blonde man decides to see who has come to see them. The man goes outside, but finds no one at the door. Just when the Duke begins to think that he misheard something, he notices out of the corner of his eye a letter lying on the ground. Mrs. Violet comes out to her son-in-law, asking him who came to see them. Aslan replies that he didn't see anyone, but he will still inspect the area just in case. When the woman leaves, the Duke opens the envelope and sees that it says that someone knows Helena Lariston's true identity. The fair-haired man immediately guesses that this letter came from Rosalina Feridot. Aslan angrily squeezes the paper and decides to go to the center right now. Seeing that the man has packed his luggage, Violet's family asks him if he is leaving for work. The blonde man informs Ryla's parents that he has urgent business at the center. Aslan asks Mr. and Mrs. Violet not to tell the fair-haired girl about his hasty departure, as he does not want to bother her with trifles. The Duke intends to make Rosalina Feridot pay for her ridiculous threat. The main character looks thoughtfully at the tulips growing in the garden. Ryla recalls her parents telling her that the Duke had left early in the morning due to numerous work commitments. The girl is worried that yesterday she never apologized for her presumptuous behavior. The blonde presses her head to her knees and thinks that she should have left everything as it is. The heroine's mother comes up to her and asks worriedly if everything is okay. Mrs. Violet asks her daughter if the Duke has done anything bad to her. When asked if they had a fight, Ryla replies that it all happened because she is narrow-minded. The fair-haired girl says that she reproaches herself for seriously thinking that Aslan could mock her. The woman hesitantly tells her daughter that the Duke does not seem like the type of person who would mock and ignore her, to which the protagonist agrees. Mrs. Violet says that Rayla and Aslan are very similar. The girl thinks about her mother's words and comes to the conclusion that comparing the blonde man to her looks pathetic. Mother tells her daughter that she and the Duke are too attentive to each other and do not care about themselves at all. Mrs. Violet confidently tells Rayla that Aslan may pretend with others, but with her he is always sincere. The woman asks the fair-haired girl to think about who is responsible for their good life now. The main character blushes and says that it was just a favor from Aslan. Mrs. Violet tells her daughter that he did all this for them because he cares about her. Mother tells Rayla that if the Duke simply felt sorry for them, he would simply give them the house. The blonde man continued to take care of Violet's family until they settled in this village. Aslan provided them with a garden so that they could continue to work and sent them letters asking how they were doing and if there were any inconveniences. Mrs. Violet asks her daughter if the Duke would help strangers if he didn't care about her. The woman takes the heroine by the hand, saying that when she reads the letters that Aslan sent them, she will definitely change her mind. Ryla opens the first envelope and reads that he wrote in it about her taste preferences and that she doesn't like strong smells. In the rest, the fair-haired man also wrote about what the main character likes and what she is interested in. Although the girl knew that the Duke periodically sent letters to her family, she was sure that they contained only a formal greeting. Mrs. Violet asks her daughter if she felt how much Aslan cares for her. Before leaving, the woman offers the fair-haired woman to read a couple more letters, but asks her not to tell the man that she showed them to her. Looking at the letter, Rayla says that she used to think that she knew the blonde man well, but now she realizes that this is not the case. The girl still cannot understand why Aslan hid from her the fact that her memory had already returned long ago. However, the heroine immediately stops short when she remembers her mother's words about how similar she and the Duke are. The blonde knows from experience how difficult it is to speak honestly about your feelings. The girl imagines what it is like to feel fear because of negative thoughts about how another person feels about you. Ultimately, the blonde preferred to avoid Aslan. Afraid to hear the truth, the heroine laughs, not understanding how she and the blonde man could become similar to each other. Rayla feels that she can now discuss everything honestly with Aslan. Rosalina Ferido walks restlessly around the room, waiting for something. The Duke enters Amber's house and looks gloomily at the red-haired girl. Lady Faridot says that the blonde man suddenly appeared in her house, although he had not contacted her until now. Aslan immediately gets down to business, asking the girl if she was the sender of that letter. Rosalina answers, slightly hesitantly, that it is so. The fair-haired man asks the Baron's daughter what she has in mind. The red-haired woman says that she actually knows the true identity of his wife. The girl mockingly tells the man to think about what will happen if this secret becomes known to everyone, causing Aslan's face to darken. Rosalina says that betraying a noblewoman is a serious crime, so Helena will most likely be in danger. The Duke asks the red-haired woman who she got this information from and how she knew that his memories had returned. Aslan says, through clenched teeth, that the girl's letter would have no meaning if his memory had not been restored. The man is sure that the Baron's daughter could not have figured this out herself, so he asks her if Glock Laristan told her about it. The blonde-haired man thinks irritably that he should have taken care of the ash-haired man earlier. Rosalina tells the Duke that if he fulfills her request, this information will not go anywhere. Aslan agrees with this and asks what the girl wants. Lady Faridot confidently says that the Duke must marry her, and then she will keep this secret for the rest of her life. The redhead knows that such a threat will not work on a man, but she cannot admit that Glock forced her. Aslan asks the girl if she really won't tell Helena's secret to anyone if he makes her a duchess. Lady Faridot says she promises that this is exactly what will happen. The fair-haired man agrees to the conditions of the Baron's daughter and tells her that he will determine the wedding date himself. The man tells the redhead that he will be staying in the center for a while, so if she has anything to say, she can come to his residence. When the Duke finally leaves, Rosalind's strength leaves her, and she falls to her knees. The girl realizes with horror that she really did it, and now, even if she honestly admits that she was threatened, Aslan will not help her. But the red-haired woman cannot believe that the man so obediently agreed to her conditions. The fair-haired man knows that Glock Laristan could not do such a thing just to make Rosalina a duchess. The Duke is sure that the ash-haired man plans to kill him and take all his property after he marries the Baron's daughter. Aslan smirks at the obviousness of Glock's plan. The man decides to pretend that everything is going according to their plan and then deal with them. Glock Larestan asks Lady Faridot how their meeting with Aslan went. The red-haired woman replies that he agreed to marry her so that his wife's secret would not be revealed. The ash-haired man happily says that he was not mistaken, that Helena turned out to be the Duke's weakness. Rosalina tells the man that the blonde man told her to start preparing for the wedding, and that he would set the date himself. To this, Glock says that everything is going better than he expected. Ash-haired says that very soon his plan will be realized, and all the wealth and power of Tordel will be in their hands. The man turns to the red-haired woman and asks her if she is worried about this. The Baron's son approaches the girl and reminds her that she will finally receive the title of Duchess, which she dreamed of so much. Seeing the doubt on Rosalina's face, Glock asks what is troubling her so much. Ash-haired says that there is nothing to worry about, since everything is going as he planned. The red-haired girl is sure that if Glock had seen Aslan's gaze at that moment, he would not have said so. Then it seemed to Rosalind that just a little more, and the Duke would hit her. The girl reproaches herself for not running away long ago and agreeing to her ex-lover's plan. Rayla writes a letter to Aslan with a smile on her face. Having finished, the heroine happily thinks that when the man returns, she will need to have a serious talk with him. Seeing his daughter hurrying down the steps, Mr. Violet asks her where she is going. Smiling broadly, the girl says that she wants to send Aslan a letter. The man asks his wife in surprise if something good happened. Mrs. Violet says the pent-up misunderstandings have finally been cleared up. A few days later, Hans arrives at Violet's house and gives Rayla a fresh newspaper and a letter addressed to her. The girl's face begins to glow with happiness. The postman looks around, and when he doesn't see what he was looking for, he asks the blonde where her companion is. Rayla replies that due to urgent matters, Aslan had to leave for a short time. After this, the heroes say goodbye, and the girl returns home. The blonde quickly opens the envelope and takes out a letter from her husband. The letter states that the blonde man will not be able to return to Ellawood anytime soon due to work. Seeing her daughter's reaction to the letter, Mrs. Violet asks her what happened. Rayla tells his parents that the blonde guy has to stay in the center due to business. The mother tells the girl that Aslan is not the kind of person who would avoid her, so she assumes that something might have happened. The main character understands that in a normal situation, she would simply wait for the Duke. However, this time the blonde feels that her soul is not at peace. Rayla confidently tells her parents that she is going to the center. Aslan looks gloomily at the letter from his wife and thinks that she is still angry with him. The man smirks, realizing that this is a natural reaction, since he has been lying to the blonde all this time. The blonde man is sure that Rayla was disappointed in him because he acted immaturely while they were together. The Duke is distracted from his thoughts by a knight who brings a report. The blue-haired man informs the gentleman that Glock Lariston approached Eston, the head of the Mache Company and distant relatives of the Tordell family. Upon hearing this, Aslan realizes that he is right about Glock's intention to kill him, as he was addressing those people who are disgusted by the Duke's existence. The blonde man asks the servant if the people listed are connected to the accident he was in, and if there is any evidence. The Duke orders a thorough investigation into Eston and Glock Lariston. The blue-haired man asks in surprise if the Duke considers the head of the Machetti Company to be guilty of the incident. Aslan explains that Eston is ready to do anything to make his company #1 in its industry, and he considers all those who do not help him with this to be useless. This is why the Duke is sure that there is no point for a man to unite with an aristocrat without influence and money. The knight says thoughtfully that there must be a reason why Aston couldn't turn down Glock's offer. The Duke says through gritted teeth that they must find out the reason. The blue-haired man apologizes for interfering in something that is none of his business, but still asks not to worry so much about the lady, since Gus is looking after her in the village. The knight convinces the master that, since no news has been received, the girl is now in Ellawood. The next moment, Dalton enters the office, informing the Duke that a guest has arrived. After this, the joyful main character looks out from behind the door. The girl shyly asks her husband if she has interfered with his work. The blonde man gets up from his seat and approaches his wife, asking why she arrived so suddenly. The thought flashes through the man's mind that the blonde has finally managed to sort out her feelings for him. Rayla smiles happily and says that they need to talk and asks for a minute. Already in the carriage, the girl thinks that she made a good start to the conversation, since she was able to remain alone with Aslan. However, now the main character feels that it is precisely because of this that she cannot utter a word. Rayla notes that the blonde man was not at all surprised by her arrival, although they had not seen each other for a long time. The blonde clears her throat and finally decides to start a conversation. The girl asks the Duke if he is interested in what she has to say. Aslan does not have time to answer, as the carriage arrives at the appointed place. The blonde man says that he is really curious, but they have to go now. The Duke reminds the girl that in the letter he mentioned that he had to sort out some business, so he asks to listen to her after he finishes with it. The main character immediately agrees with this. As the couple exit the carriage, a dark figure appears from around the corner, watching them. This stranger turns out to be Glock, who smiles slyly as he looks at the heroes. Rosalina Ferido paces back and forth, worried about how things are getting more and more serious. The girl remembers how Glock recently burst into her room, telling her that Helena had arrived in the center and was now in the Tordell estate. This greatly surprises the red-haired woman, and she wonders what Aslan could have told his wife about everything. However, Rosalina immediately pushes these thoughts away, since even when the man brought her to the estate, he did not tell Helena anything. The ash-haired man says that because of the arrival of the fair-haired woman in the center, they may have problems. Glock tells his ex-lover that he will meet with the girl so that she does not interfere with their plan. Such words frighten Rosalina, and she, grabbing the man by the hand, shouts to him that if he harms her, then Aslan will definitely not sit idly by. Glock pulls his hand away, annoyed that he would never do something so stupid. Ash-haired orders Lady Feridot to simply wait while he takes care of everything. Remembering this conversation, the red-haired girl begins to worry even more, since Glock is not the kind of person who acts quietly. Rosalina is sure that the man definitely intends to do something bad to Helena Laristine. The heroes come to a jewelry store, which surprises Aslan, and he notes that noble ladies rarely visit such places. Rayla explains that her maid Jenna told her about this store. The blonde man asks his wife to tell him if she likes anything here. On the display case, the blonde notices a sparkling box with a mermaid in the middle. Rayla, with a smile on her face, thinks that if the price is acceptable, she will definitely buy this thing. However, when he sees the price, he immediately blushes and puts the box back in its place. Duke Tordell notices this and approaches the girl, asking why she changed her mind. Rayla sheepishly says that she doesn't really like music boxes, which means it will just end up gathering dust somewhere. The blonde-haired one takes the object in his hand and says that he wants to give the red-haired one a gift. The main character tries to refuse the Duke's offer, but he insistently asks her to accept the gift. In the end, the blonde agrees, thanking him shyly. When Aslan leaves to pay for the purchase, the heroine's cheeks turn red. The girl recalls that she previously thought that the man was simply being kind to her, but after reading the letters, she realized the sincerity of his feelings. The heroes leave the store, and the blonde man tells Rayla that her box will soon be sent to Ellawood. A moment later it starts to rain, which then turns into a downpour. The Duke offers to bring an umbrella from the carriage so that the fair-haired girl does not get her clothes wet. The rain only gets stronger, so the girl begins to worry about Aslan. A man in a cape approaches the main character, covering his face with a hood. When the man removes his hood, Rayla sees his half-brother, Glock Lariston, in front of him. The blonde-haired girl stutters and asks the ash-haired man in a frightened voice what he is doing here. Glock smirks and says that he is here to take revenge on his little sister, who betrayed him and ran away. Rayla is about to scream to get attention, but someone grabs her arm, telling her to look back. The blonde looks at the street, and it turns out to be completely deserted, which brings tears to her eyes. Ash-haired tells the main character to calm down and do as he says so that neither she nor Aslan gets hurt. The man tells his sister to go to a place where even the Duke cannot find her. Rayla sadly reflects on the fact that she has just realized how Aslan feels about her, and she finally has a chance to talk to him. Glock reminds the girl that she posed as an aristocrat and deceived the emperor into giving her permission to marry, so that she could be accused of intentionally destroying the ruler. The fair-haired girl realizes that if she does not leave Aslan, then they will both have to appear before the court. If this happens, the fair-haired man will instantly lose all the wealth and influence he fought for. A single tear runs down Rayla's cheek, and she agrees to her stepbrother's terms. After some time, a blonde man with an umbrella approaches the girl, apologizing for the delay. The man notices that tears are continuously streaming down the blonde's face. Aslan leans towards his wife, asking her with concern what happened. Rayla turns her blank gaze to the Duke and informs him that she must leave. The blonde man asks the girl again about what happened, and whether it is connected with Ella Wood. When the Duke receives only apologies in response to his questions, he loudly shouts the girl's name so that she will pay attention to him. The man suggests that they first return home and calmly discuss everything. Aslan warns the fair-haired girl that she cannot leave without sharing at least some details with him. The blonde man looks closely at his wife, noticing that she is still upset about something. The Duke does not understand what news the girl could have learned while he went away for an umbrella for a couple of minutes. The man gloomily thinks that Rosalina and Glock Laristine could have started threatening the blonde. The next moment, the blonde feels a sharp pain in his temples. Aslan puts his hand to his face, thinking about the fact that he shouldn't jump to conclusions. When the heroes arrive at the Tordell estate, the blonde man informs Rayla that her room has already been prepared. Dalton greets the heroes and offers to take the girl to her chambers. Suddenly, Aslan begins to feel very dizzy, and everything starts to swim before his eyes. The man's strength leaves him, and he loses consciousness and falls to the floor. After conducting a small examination, the doctor reports that the blonde man's life is not in danger and that he simply needs to recover from overwork. The man asks Mrs. Tordell not to worry, as the Duke just needs to sleep. Looking at her husband, Rayla asks in amazement how much he worked to bring his body to such a state. Dalton tells the girl that Aslan has really been working a lot lately and could sleep less than 2 hours a day. The man says that upon returning to the center, the blonde man immersed himself in work and barely ate. The main character asks the servant if there was anything else that caused the Duke to end up in such a state. Dalton tells the fair-haired girl that although he cannot tell all the details, he can definitely assure her that Aslan did all this to protect her. Rayla wonders if the man might have returned to the center because Glock might have said something as unpleasant to him as he did to her. The main character can't believe that she was ready to leave a man who is ready to do everything for her just because of the words of the ash-haired man. The fair-haired woman tells Aslan that she has a lot to hear from him and no less to say in response. Rayla feels the man's hand just twitch and realizes that he is finally starting to wake up. The blonde man opens his eyes and apologizes to the girl for making her worry. The girl tells Aslan that it is she who needs to apologize, since she often bothers him for no reason. As the Duke begins to rise, the blonde stops him, asking him to rest until the end. The man smiles, reminding his wife that she wanted to talk to him. The blonde man pauses for a second and says that he also needs to discuss something with her, something he has been putting off for a long time. Lady Faridot asks Glock worriedly if something happened to Aslan. The man says irritably that the Duke has lost consciousness. Ash-haired says that everything would have turned out differently if Helena had listened to him right away, but now she definitely won't leave. Rosalind's gaze darkens, and she says that she can't do this anymore. The next moment, the girl screams loudly that she is no longer going to participate in the ash-haired man's games. Lady Faridot says she doesn't want to be a duchess anymore, and she doesn't like the fact that a man is dragging her into something terrible. The red-haired girl says that she wants to go somewhere where no one knows her and live in peace. In response to these statements, Glock pushes the girl, causing her to fall to the floor. The ash-haired man says that he doesn't need the girl's hysterics when he already has problems. The Count's son orders the red-haired woman not to interfere with him and to do what he says, as has been the case until now. When the man turns his back to Lady Faridot, she turns around and notices a golden jug behind her. Rosalina grabs the object, runs up to Glock, and hits him over the head with it.